This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone. Morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Will everyone join or should we wait for anyone? Hi Asadul. Did everyone join?
Yeah, hello Sangam. No, I don't think so. Not everyone joined.
Yeah.
Now I can see about
Also,
7 to 8 people.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I think you're good to go because have we should be starting at 11. Okay, so
also
should
quick question.
start.
You sent video recording for yesterday's session, right? So
Yes, I
that
did.
you put it in Google Drive or is it sent as attachment?
Google Drive.
Google Drive. Okay.
Uh,
So did you send it to everyone?
yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So my I'm going to put some documents in Google Drive too, but not the same ID, my email ID. So I'll give you the link user ID later. So that will be different. So we can also put that in the same drive, or if you can share the credentials to the Google Drive that you have put in, everybody, I mean, including mine, I can also put it.
Okay, just send me an email what you wanna do. I'm just gonna make it happen. Okay.
Okay, so the email ID is so you can give access to this one. Okay, so that I will also put some documents in here.
All right, great.
I'll just ping it. Chat. Yeah. So current email I can't. I mean it's out of space, so I can't use. We can use it for just email. You can send it to this. Asina, I am working with tech managers, watching students how they are response in the class. Okay. Asina Akhtar is are you a student or are you just tech matrix employee?
Hi, Sangam. Sorry, I'm not a student. So that's why I just sent a message. You see my message, right?
Oh yeah, I just read your message.
Thank you.
Asina
Bye.
at gmail.com. Okay. So okay, let's get started. Yesterday we have seen software test, the development life cycle, all parts of it. And today we'll start STLC, software testing life cycle. So the stages in STLC are, as I mentioned in the notepad: test initiation, test planning, test design, black box test design include black box testing techniques, test execution, defect reporting, test closure. So these are the official stages of software testing lifecycle. So what are the stages of software testing lifecycle again? Test initiation, test planning, test design, test execution, defect reporting, and test closure. 6 stages. So we will know about each one of these steps. So what is test initiation and who will does it and when does it occur? So test initiation is the first meeting as far as the software testing team is concerned. So mainly this is done by PM and TM. So PM is project manager, TM is a test manager. So I'll just get a glossary of the acronyms. TM, TL stands for test lead. I mean, this is the normal terminology that we use in IT industry. And TE, normally we use it for test engineer. All right. And TC, okay, so normally referred to as technical consultant. So which basically means the developer. So this is the basic terminology. So we can add or remove or modify it according to the project needs. Okay. So test initiation, as the name suggests, it is a initiation of the testing phase in the software development life cycle itself. So who does it? PM or TM. It is initiated by only two people will be there, and they will discuss what to do and what not to do, and they will come up with a document called, any guesses? They propose test strategy document. So test strategy document contains, as the name suggests, strategy, approach toward the testing, how we are going to do and everything. So it's initiation is still in initiation phase. However, it will contain comprehensive information about testing approach and strategy, and it will be shared with all the stakeholders, including PMTM development team and infrastructure team lead, all the leads especially. So just the leads. Okay, so that's about it. It's just initiation document, strategy document. So however, the most important for testing as far as the planning is concerned is test planning stage. So who conducts this test planning? Any guesses?
Test lead.
Test lead, correct. Test lead conducts a test planning because he's directly connected to the testing overall. So he will be looking. I mean, what shall I call? He will be taking care of the whole testing team. So he will be preparing the test planning document so that he will have complete grip on it and he can modify later. So, and he proposes a document called, what kind of document? You can guess easily. Test plan document. Okay. So don't worry, I will show you how the test plan document looks like. I will share it with you in Google Drive. So it's not for a regular test engineer or automation test engineer. It's only can be modified by test lead or automation test lead, if at all. So however, it will be shared with everyone. We just need to go through it in order to understand what are the stages in test plan document. So then comes test design document. Okay, so quickly I'll just cover test planning because test planning is important. Now test plan document primarily contains what? Okay, so I will just discuss. What to test, how to test, who to test, and when to test. So these will be clearly mentioned in the test plan document. Okay, so let's just elaborate on these. What to test. So what are the parts of application that need to be tested? So for example, the front end parts can easily be tested, right, manually or automation wise. Some parts of database need to be tested manually only, not automation wise. Some parts of web services need to be tested manually only, not automation wise, or maybe all parts need to be tested only through automation if they are like stubs, there is no front end. So all these things will be discussed in under this section, what to test, in the test plan document. So this is purely related to the project. So based on the project, it will change, it will be customized. So then how to test? How to test in the sense, are we going to test manually, 80% manually in the initial phases, 20% using some automation tool. Later on, we can increase the 20% to 50%. Everything will be discussed under this section. And who to test. So who to test, sir, normally refers to the hiring. So they would have already hired some people like test engineers. Test engineers are normally referred to as junior test engineers or senior test engineers, STE, right? So based on their expertise, they will be assigned what to test, who to test, who will test what. So, and automation test engineers as well. So that will come under test engineer as well. So they will be assigned tasks, not particularly, but in general. Also when to test. So basically they will look at the project schedule document, overall project document, and based on that schedules and deadlines, when we should need to complete certain part of testing, when we should complete certain applications in the overall project. So all these things will be discussed. So again, this is fully customized according to the project needs. So in general, I'm talking about right now. Okay. So having said that, we'll move on to test design. So as the name suggests, who will prepare it? Anyone?
Test engineer.
Test engineer, correct, because test engineer is the one who actually designs it. So initially, let's say senior test engineer, because he has more experience. So since we need to design the test cases properly, he will be the one who, or they will be the one who are going to get involved in test design, because test design is gonna impact the coverage and traceability, right? That means we have to cover all the requirements. So in other words, no requirement should be left untested, or in other words, each requirement must be mapped to one or more test cases, and or each test case must cover one or more requirements, right? That's the traceability. So since it's a job with responsibility, so senior test engineers are going to take care of test design initially. I mean, later on, even junior test engineers can also write some test cases, but initially senior test engineers. So what they will come up with, what is their deliverable? Anyone?
Functional requirement?
No. Functional requirements are delivered by the business analyst team, BAs. Remember, we have already covered that. Requirement part is not test team's botheration. So what's test team's botheration? In the test design.
Blackbox?
What kinds of techniques can you use?
No, those are all techniques. Techniques will be covered in the test design. But what is the document name in the test design phase? Is simple, right? It's right there. Answer is answer
Test
lies.
design.
Design of how you're going to test?
No, how can we test the design? It's a design. It's not the technical design that HLD and LLD that we talked about. It's related to development. So directly, it's not related. High level design and low level design with flow charts and everything. So what is the deliverable during the test design phase is test case documents, correct? Test cases, that's what it is. We have to write the test cases, right? Now, before writing test cases, they have to come up with test scenarios, right? Now, I'll explain what is the difference between test scenarios and test cases. Okay, so test scenarios are like stories, like test stories, test titles, let's say, what you are going to test in one sentence. Now, test cases are the step-by-step processes of the particular test scenario. That means you have to subdivide them into steps in such a way that anyone in the testing team can execute them without any ambiguity. So they have to be very clear in steps and what to expect, what not to expect, what should be input, what is the data, what is the input data, what is the output data, should we include the screenshot or not, should we check the database, what is a SQL query if at all we are testing the database, what is a payload if you are testing the web service, what is a JSON if you are testing the RESTful service. So all these information must be clearly mentioned in the test cases, step by step, step 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll show you the sample test case document, and I will also give you a hands-on exercise for that, so don't worry. So that is the difference between test scenario. Okay, so now this would be an important interview question. So what is the difference between test scenario and test case? Test scenario is the test case title, right? Test case title or story in one sentence. I mean, this is the not standard definition, so you can come up with your own. This is just for understanding purpose only. Now, what is a test case? Test case is the step-by-step elaboration of a test scenario. Okay. And what is the next step after the test case? Now we have prepared all the test cases, or at least the test cases for the currently available business requirements. I mean, they are gonna increase, so we have to come up with more test cases. But for now, we have covered all the test cases, let's say. What is the next step? Test execution. So test execution is performed by who? As you said earlier, tester, right? Or T test engineer. So normally junior test engineers can read the test cases and execute them on the application manually. So it would be the easiest job. If at all they have any doubts, they can clarify them with the senior test engineer. So it would be easier. So, and it takes some manual labor. So hence they will be performed by the junior test engineer. And what are they gonna come up with? What are their deliverables? What do they produce? After test execution, what do you have to produce? Yes? Anyone?
It's test results.
Correct. Good. Test results. Because after test execution, what you're gonna submit to the test management team, I mean test lead, test results. Test results will contain what? Screenshots. Yeah, because you have asserted something, you have validated some expected result against the actual result. Expected is what you're expecting in the test case. Actual is what you're actually seeing while you're executing, and that will be shown in the screenshot. Or you can say captions, verdict of each step, like pass or fail, pass, fail, everything. Title, everything will be there in the screenshot test results. So it can be in the form of PDF or doc. Okay, now what is the next step? Defect reporting. Okay, so now who are gonna report the defects to whom? I mean defect reporting by whom to whom?
Consultant.
You can say by whom? Who are gonna report the defects? Tester or
Tester.
tester? Yeah, and to whom? Who is gonna? Who are they gonna report them to?
To developers, but before
Developers.
Yeah.
Developers. Tester reports the test defect to developers, or sometimes tester assigns defect to test lead, so the test lead can choose the developer's name based on his area of expertise and assign it to him. So either way. So ultimately it will come from a tester and go to a developer. Okay. Now this has its own life cycle, defect reporting life cycle, that we will see in short while. So in nutshell, it's raised by tester and assigned to a developer, and there are many phases of defect reporting. So sometimes some projects have separate team called defect reporting team, but that's not right now. I mean, currently don't have to maintain a separate defect reporting team. So everyone who is testing can act as a defect report. So what are the deliverable in the defect reporting? What is actually being delivered here? Who are involved, we have already seen. What are they gonna come up with in the test defect reporting phase? Defects.
defect description.
Yeah, defect. Correct. Defect has title. Basically, you have to mention clearly what is the title, what is the description, step by step, what you are expecting, what you are not seeing, what do you want to see, what is actually being shown on the front end application or back end application. Everything you have to describe in such a way that the developer understands it, so that he can fix it. The more you elaborate it, the quicker you can fix it. So description, and you can attach any screenshots for visual representation, which will give a developer big chance to look at it, because everybody knows screenshot picture is like 1,000 words, right? so they can understand it easily, because everybody is aware of the application. So instead of description, screenshot would be a better way of expressing. So screenshot and test data. What data you have used? Sometimes we use dummy data, test data, or we use real data, synthetic data, or sometimes if you are testing production data, real actual data. So you have to mention all those things, actual test data, so that the developer can replicate the defect on his environment, dev environment. And if he has any questions, he will always get back to you and get some queries clarified. So all these things will be mentioned in the defects, and normally the defects are going to be, it's like tickets going to be raised in a tool. Manually you cannot use like an Excel spreadsheet, you cannot send Excel spreadsheet the defects and via email. So that will be very cumbersome, because it's you're gonna I mean you have to send back and forth email, so that will be very non easier way. So we use some tools. Popular tool is JIRA, and there is another tool also, Quality Center can also be used, or ALM. So popular is JIRA, Quality Center, and there are many other tools like Bugzilla, many tools, but it totally depends upon the management. So JIRA is widely used. Okay, so after defect reporting, finally test closure. Okay, so like the name suggests, who will be involved in it and what will be their deliverable. Any guesses? All the management team basically, right? PM, TM, TL, either or. So they will come up with a document called, obviously, test closure document, right? So test closure document normally contains what jobs have been finished and what is the schedule, did we meet the deadline, and all those things. So it's only internal to the leadership team. So we have seen couple of keywords during the STLC phase that we have to elaborate. Okay, I'll ask quick question. Okay, in the test design phase, we have to come up with two things: test scenario and test cases, right? So what is the test scenario?
Title or the story in one sentence. The test case scenario.
Test case scenario in one sentence. So I would, let's call it testing possibility. So test scenarios, we have to jot down all of them based on their possibilities. Possibilities in the sense, I will give an example. So for example, there is a login module, right? So it's a simple module where you have to enter user ID and password and click on the login button and see successfully are you logged in or not. That's my simple this thing module. And how many possibilities are there for testing in this module? How many possibilities are there? I mean, we are going to discuss this again, so I'm just
Two possibilities.
how many?
Two possibilities.
Not okay. What are they? Okay, let's say two possibilities. What are they?
You have the actual data, which is a positive. And then you come up with the invalid data, which will be negative scenario.
Correct. So on the surface level, there are two possibilities. One is positive data. One is second is negative data. So that means the user ID password that are gonna work and the invalid user ID password that are not gonna work. These are the two main testing possibilities. However, you can come up with more. So like you can always go for the various combinations of this. So what are those? Login with valid user ID and valid password. That is one possibility. That is one test scenario I'm saying. Second one is login with valid user ID but invalid password. Third one is login with invalid user ID but valid password. Fourth one is login with invalid user ID and invalid password. So 4 possibilities are there. I mean, quickly you can still dig in and get more possibilities. So just for an example, I'm stating it. We will discuss more about this during the test case preparation. How do we prepare the test case and everything. So those are the testing possibilities, right? You have to come up with all those. You have to think basically. It's a thinking job. So that's why it is mostly going to be handled by senior testing rather than junior testing. So testing possibilities. Now test cases. What are the test cases? This is
Step-by-step implementation of the test scenarios.
correct. Yeah, it's a detailed implementation of test scenarios. Simple. So this would be the better definition for this. If these questions are asked in the interview, you can state. So detailed implementation in the sense, for example, if I take the first scenario, login with valid user ID and password is going should result in a successful login and account page should be displayed. That's my test scenario. Okay, let's say. Now test case would be detailed implementation, like step by step implementation of this test scenario. So how do we do that? Verbally I'm saying. So first step number 1, you're gonna open the application, right? Expected is application will be opened successfully. Home page should be displayed and you will leave the column actual result. So it will look like this. Don't worry, I will show you the document in Excel, but just for the discussion purposes I am writing here. So test scenario example, login with valid user ID and a valid password should result in, should display the user's account page successfully. That's my scenario. Now how are you gonna elaborate it? So in Word, test case example for this particular scenario. So step number 1, so you will have all these columns, steps in the Excel spreadsheet or whatever tool you are going to use. Quality Center also has a tab called test design and test level, all those things. So you're gonna basically enter all this information steps in the nice grid Excel kind of page. So test steps, test description at that particular step, what you're going to do, expected result and actual result. So basically we have 4 columns in any given test case document. So step number 1, test description is launch the web page and expected result is home page should be displayed, right? Actual result you leave it empty because you have not executed the test cases yet. So this will be for test case execution. Whatever the result the test engine is going to see, they'll have to fill this and match this if expected and actual are same, and that particular steps verdict pass or fail. So that will be left true. So I'm just going to leave this blank. Okay, second step is after you have launched the web page, you're going to see the login, right? So home page should be displayed with login. You can say login pod or login module. After this, next step you're going to use is enter a valid user ID and a valid password, right? So you can also give data. So if you want, you can include another column called test data. So that's totally up to the management. You want to include in the test case document itself, or you want to use another separate spreadsheet for test data and map this test case. That is up to the test lead. So enter a valid user and password. So, and if there are any validations right away, then you have to create a step for that. For example, if user ID only accepts 6 to 30 characters alphanumeric, then as soon as you enter an invalid character like special character, or if you go beyond 30 characters, it's gonna display the error right away. So that's totally up to the implementation project. So we are not going to go into those details right now. So let's say we enter the valid user and the password and click submit, right? So what are you going to expect? What is the expected result here if I enter user ID, password and click submit?
Successful login.
Login should be successful, yes. Okay, so actual result will be filled in at the time of execution. So login is successful will be the actual result. If it is a login is not successful, you're seeing error, whatever they are gonna fill this with. And test verdict, test data if any. Okay, that I leave. So that's it. Simple test case with 2 steps. This is just for your quick understanding. So in this case, verdict at the time of execution, the first step is passed. Let's say, I mean, there is no complication. Launching web page result in home page display. It's successful. So they will fill in like home page is displayed with the login code, right? That is pass. Now in the second step, even after entering valid user ID password, like I really entered 6 to 30 characters user ID and password, which is already been signed up with, but login is not successful. It says your user ID or password is invalid, right? So then what I would write in the verdict column? Fail. Okay, so now step number 1 is pass, step number 2 is fail. Now what is the verdict of this test case? Is it pass or fail? One step is pass, one step is fail. So what do you consider the test case verdict as?
Fail.
Fail. So that means if any of the test steps fail, the entire test case is said to be failed. Its verdict is fail basically. So in other words, only if all the test steps have passed, then only the test case is considered to be passed. So just have to keep that in mind. So this is a simple example. I hope you have gotten the picture in your mind. So how the test scenarios, how you are going to come up with test scenarios. Basically, it's a thinking job, testing past possibilities. So you have to think manually. So there is no tool for writing test scenarios. There is no automation tool. That is still a manual job. And test cases, you have to in detail you have to mention. So this is again a manual job. There is no tool as of now to write the test cases. So since you have to come up with the logic and everything, so these are totally a manual testing jobs. Okay, so now we have covered all the six steps in the test STLC, software testing life cycle. Okay, now I am gonna go over these steps quickly. Okay, so test initiation. What is the test initiation? Test initiation is the starting stage in the system testing process. During this stage, who are gonna get involved in this stage? Project manager and or test manager, they prepare strategy document, test strategy document, okay, or if it is also known as methodology document. So this document contains what are the components in this document. This is not really needed, but it's nice to know, so that's why I'm saying. So in any document, any planning type of strategy kind of document, you will always have these components. What are those components? Scope. So scope is, what is scope? The description of the project and purpose of the testing, so they have to mention. Then any business issues, so any issues like budget, how much percent of the total budget need to be allocated for testing, how much percentage of the total budget needs to be allocated for the development purpose. So what do you think, is it 50-50? No. So obviously development is going to take maximum amount of budget, so that will be like, let's say budget will be allocated like development 65%, testing how much, 35%, let's say. This is just an example. So how much amount of testing process need? Obviously you have less budget and less time also, so budget and time, let's divide. So obviously it's directly proportional, budget and time. So budget and time, let's say. So the development can take more time, however testing need to be finished quicker, so that's what it means. So you have to be very faster in thinking, coming up with scenarios, writing test cases, executing them and everything. Okay, and what are the approaches? Because strategy means approach. What are the approaches? So approaches means the what kind of testing are we going to do? Like we have discussed the testing types, black box testing types and everything, right? So are we going to include in the this is going to come under agile only, because we are taking like agile, keeping the agile in mind, we are discussing everything, because nowadays every project uses agile almost. Okay, so approach will be I will be having UI, user interface testing, load testing and security testing. Of course functional testing will be there, so that is for sure. So all these things will be approach, I mean they will be covered. So that's what this approach section in the test strategy document is going. And roles and responsibilities. So like the name suggests, who are going to be responsible for what. So based on, like just like you mentioned your roles and responsibilities in the resume, so it will be same thing, who are going to take care of what. And status reporting, how it is going to be. I mean, initially they have to document everything. Status report is going to be in the Excel spreadsheet, and how you're going to report the test case executions, like in the PDF format with screenshots or document. Manual testing is testers are mostly going to be reporting the test results in the for each test case in the document, because they can easily be edited, right? You can put screenshot, captions, verdict. So my automation testing team can come up with a PDF, because it's automated. You can just write a piece of Java code, and it will gonna just compile all the screenshots and verdicts and everything automatically, and produce a PDF, and you can also share it via email or in automated fashion. So that's everything will be initially documented in a document called test strategy document. And like I said, automation is one of the primary things that will be discussed prior hand. Automation, what kind of tools, right? Like QTP or Selenium for load testing, load runner, everything will be mentioned. The necessity of automation process and the testing tools that we are going to use based on the budget, because Selenium is a open source tool, so we can use it, and QTP is not open source, we have to pay for license. Can we use it or not? Based on budget also, they'll come up with the tools, what tools, and defect reporting and tracking, what tools. Reporting, what tools, like I've already told you, JIRA. And there is another important tool for configuration management. If anybody has any idea what is configuration management. So during development or automation development also, we can use a configuration tool called Visual Source Save or Clear Case or Subversion or Git, right? All these tools. VSS, Clear Case is the IBM tool. Visual Source Save is a Microsoft tool. And normally we use Subversion. It's an open source tool. These two are not open source. VSS and ClearCase are paid tools. So mostly based on projects budget, we can go with the open source tool or GitHub. Right? These are all open source. These two last two. So what kind of tools we can use, that will be mentioned in this document. And metrics. Metrics like test traceability matrix, and how many modules are there, how much time are we going to allocate for each module. Everything will be discussed. So at least on the surface level, if not in detail. And any risks and solutions. So the any risks, since what are the risks, what are the assumptions, and what are the solutions. So they are, it's purely management. Yeah, metrics in the sense, what are the different allocations. So metrics is different from traceability matrix, so that okay. So risks and solutions, and then finally any training is needed, because training team is an important part of some projects, because they have to set up their own customer care center, right? For that they have to train. So those knowledge has to be shared. So normally testing team also comes into picture for training, because they have to develop some test data. So they have to run some test cases too in order to build a test data that is going to go in the test training environment, different environments. So either it is done manually in automated fashion or performance fashion. Also performance test tool can generate or synthetic data, or they can mimic the actual production data. They can mask it and produce the bulk data in the training environment, so that the training team can be like trained with this data. Just like if you're going to call customer care center, they can look at their own separate application, and whatever you're querying, they can come up with a solution right away. So that kind of, so these all things will be mentioned in the document called test strategy document during test initiation phase. So this is just to make you aware of this. Now test planning document. Test planning document will contain what? Let's revisit quickly. So this is just to elaborate you on what is test plan document. So test plan document describes the objectives, scopes, metrics, and everything that have been discussed in the test strategy document, but morely practical way. So we can directly apply this during the test design phase and rest of the phases. So who are going to be involved in this test planning document phase? Who prepares the test planning?
Test lead.
Test lead, right? So like any document, any planning type of document should contain, it also contains scope, right? Scope, what is its scope? And like it will have sections like subheadings in a document, like called test plan ID Okay, so ID, unique ID will be given, like dp underscore your project name. Okay, so this is not the naming convention, but as per it has to be camel case. Like this. Underscore 01, so 02, 03. So every a plan should be given an ID so that we can refer to that later in case any modifications are required or reference purposes. We can always put the test plan ID and introduction, description, any test items, what to testing features, features to be tested, features to be tested, not to be tested, everything. These are all components of any test plan document. And approaches. What are the approaches? It's a list of testing techniques to be applied in the project from strategy document. So it will be input will be taken from the strategy documents and it will be elaborated in test approaches. And the testing environments, how many environments will be there? So what are the environments normally? Dev environment, test. Normally we have test 1, test 2 environments. It's totally depends upon the project. And staging environment, training environment, production environment, likewise. So mostly we are going to test, unit testing will be done in dev environment, or say testing 1, smoke testing will be done in test 1 environment, regression testing will be done in test 2 environment, and unit testing will be done in stage environment. Training team will only work in training environment, but for production of training data, like I mentioned earlier, can be done in training environment so that they can access that data. And finally, production testing before releasing, before going live, we can also perform some testing. Normally, it's performance testing will be done in staging environment and production environment too. So because they want to really check how it's gonna perform in the actual environment. Then entry criteria. What is the entry criteria? As the name suggests, what are the preliminary conditions to test execution, like test design documents, what kind of softwares, what kind of functionality we have to receive from development team, what is the test environment, everything will be in the entry criteria. So basically it is to start the testing process. What is the criteria to start the testing process? Everything will be mentioned, documented in the test plan document. Then what is the suspension criteria? So like the name suggests, what is the suspension criteria? When we can temporarily hold the testing. Like for example, if you're gonna face some serious issues in the testing, like total environment is down, right? Then we can stop. When to temporarily stop. Stops. To stop means hold. So basically it's not complete stop, temporarily stop testing. So when those possibilities come under, so when environment is down, application crash, yeah. So these are the major things. So in that case, it will be called showstopper. So what is this showstopper? Showstopper is the parent functionality is not working. I mean, some child functionality is not working too. So in which case we have to hold, like for example, the login is not working. So I cannot proceed whatever happens after login, like checking the my transactions in the my account page and blah, 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 changing the profile, so that I cannot access subsequent modules at all because it's entirely dependent upon the login, successful login. So that would be considered the showstopper. So showstopper is, what is a showstopper? I will mention this as a separate piece because this is normally asked in interview and mostly used, widely used terminology in the project also. So what is a showstopper? All child functionalities are not working because of a incorrect parent functionality. Like login is not working, hence all its subsequent like profile checking, transaction checking, everything, the subsequent are not working. So that is considered showstopper. So once any tester raises a showstopper, then a suspension criteria will be applied. So test lead gonna take a decision how long this is gonna be temporarily put a hold on the testing and everything. Okay, so we have discussed entry criteria, when to start the testing, what are the criteria that we need, suspend, when to suspend the testing, especially using when the showstoppers occur, and then exit criteria. Okay, so normally the question will be, what is the exit criteria for testing? So obviously the name suggests, right, when to stop the testing permanently and completely for that particular release. So that will be the exit criteria. So this basically mentions all the necessary conditions to stop test execution. Okay, so what do you think are the exit criteria? When, under what circumstances we can stop the execution? There are only two criteria. When do you think we can stop the complete execution?
When test has passed.
Until test
Done.
When all the criteria is met.
when all functionalities are tested completely, obviously, right? All test cases have been executed. That is one criteria. You can close the testing. And what else? Is there any other criteria that we can force, that can force us to stop the test execution, even though all functionalities are not tested? What is other important? Time frame, right? The time frame is over. Even though we have some test case left, we are forced to stop. So test duration is complete. I mean, like we discussed in the time test strategy document, budget and time is allocated for development and testing purposes, right? 65% to development, 35% to testing. So based on the criteria, testing time is over. So still there are more test cases to run. However, because in order to meet the deadline, we have to stop. I mean, we can either postpone these or whatever. That is purely up to a test lead. But the test duration is over. Hence, exit criteria will be applied. Okay. Now, in the test plan document, these are all the sections that will be documented. So hence we are discussing about this. So this everything under test planning. So then test deliverables. Why we are discussing about all this? Because even though we have discussed already, because these will be documented, mentioned and read, gone through in the test plan document. So hence we have to be aware of this section. Okay, test deliverables sections will be section will be mentioned. And what do you think will be mentioned under test deliverables? We already discussed. Just have to document it. What are the deliverables? They are the output documents to be delivered during the testing process. So what are these deliverables? What are the test deliverables that you think?
Test case
Yes.
document.
Test
Plan documents.
test design docs. I mean test cases will be coming under test design. And what else we need to produce?
The test data.
Right. Test data, yes. And after test execution, what are the documents? Obviously.
Test closure. Summary.
No. Test junior test engineer or some test engineers have tested, right? Now, what are they going to come up with? What are those called? We have already said this before. Somewhere here.
Test
Or here.
results.
Correct. Test results. That is an important deliverable as far as the test plan document is concerned. And then defect reports also, right? I mean, they will be documented in the test plan document. That's why we are just writing them down just for the, I mean, you can refer to this later. So that's why I'm documenting. And there are many things. I mean, we don't have to go through all of those. It's not very, not necessary also, but I'm just mentioning the important ones that as a tester we need to know. And schedules, of course, when to test, what kind of functionality will be tested when, and everything. And so schedules means date and time of execution of modules or functionalities. And if any risks, final chapter in any document is risks and assumptions in solutions. And solutions. So what will be mentioned under this? Risks. What do you think? What does it mean by risks and assumptions? Risks are, I mean, what are the risks? If you are going to spend too much time on this, what's going to result? I mean, do we have to come up with another solution, right? All those things. So it's purely management based. So I'll just leave it. And finally, approvals. I mean, final signatures and approvals will be final. So if you look at any test plan document, a final page will be signed, reviewed and signed by project manager, test project director, test manager. So all the leads or main stakeholders. So that's final. So basically it contains signatures of PM, TM, director. So it's basically dependent upon the project's hierarchy. Okay, now what is the next one after this test plan? I mean, we are just elaborating on this. Test initiation is elaborated, test planning is elaborated. What next? Next one is
Test design.
test design. So test design primarily means what? What do you mean by test design? Anyone? We already discussed. We are just going over once again. So just to make you fully aware of these concepts. It's basically concepts of manual testing that you can say. So practically you're going to use this. So only way is to
Test case document, test scenarios.
test scenarios. Yes, that's what you have written, right? Test case document, test scenarios. I have given simple example also. Okay. Now in test design, we have system test design. Where is this test design? Okay, I'm just elaborating right under that section. Okay, system test design, because it's directly is referring to system testing. So that's what we do, right? We don't do unit testing, we don't do integration testing. What we do is called system testing or system integration testing. System integration testing is basically it's end-to-end testing. That means it covers front end, back end, web services, everything. So that's end-to-end testing. So primarily functional testing will be covered in system testing. That's what we refer to as system test design. Okay, so we start system test design right after the test plan document is prepared and we have read the test plan document as a senior test engineer, right? Now test design document must also contain some things which we have discussed just now. What are those important? Obviously, test scenarios. What are the test scenarios? It's a possibility of testing, right? And elaborated versions of test scenarios, which are step-by-step processes of any given test scenario, that is called test cases. You have already seen this. But now there are some different things that we need to keep in mind while designing. That's why we have to get the senior test engineer involved in this. So what are those? First thing is they have to be fully aware of what? Business requirements, right? Why they have to be fully aware of business requirements? First of all, they have to, every business requirement has an ID. Again, I haven't discussed it because it's up to the business requirement team, business analyst team. So let's say business requirement, it will be like ID will be like this: requirement underscore module 1_01. Let's say that's ID. Now that says something like login should only be successful with a user ID of minimum 6, max 30 alpha numeric characters and a password. So when I say just password, it's a valid password of course, so it doesn't have to be explained that level. So password with password. So when you actually sign up, you have to mention this password. So that is again password with valid password, which is valid. So when sign up occurs, they will mention the password should be minimum these characters, maximum these characters. Can you use special characters or not? So all those things. Valid password to only be successful. That's it. Okay, that's a, let's say, business requirement. Now, while test design is occurring, the tester, the senior tester has to understand this completely. Okay, so word by word. So it will be very careful. Only be successful with a user ID of minimum 6, max 30 alphanumeric characters. So based on this, he can come up with the different test scenarios. So here test scenario should be, I can take 6 user ID with 6. So the emphasis on user ID. That's why I didn't mention what the password is. I just mentioned password valid, right? So now we just focus on the user ID. Now, what do you think? How many scenarios will come here? One is I can take user ID, minimum 6 character, and a valid password, right? That is successful. Let's say I can take 5 character user ID. That is not going to result in a successful login. That is another scenario. Then I'll go to like 10 characters alphanumeric. That is successful. I'll take 15 character user ID, but with a special character. What happens? No successful, right? Again, I'll take 30 alphanumeric. Success. 31 alphabet. What is a success or failure in login?
Failure.
Failure. Okay, so I'm just mentioning in terms of just I'm not completing sentences. So it's the thought process I'm saying. So that's how a tester has to be thinking in order to come up with the test scenarios. 35 alphanumeric. Okay, don't worry, I'm going over randomly. I'm not applying any techniques like black box testing techniques that I'll come to later. So this is how the thought process of a test engineer should be while coming up with test scenarios. So that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now after test scenarios are done, now they have to come up with the test cases. Obviously, you know, test cases are step-by-step processes. They have to subdivide it. We have seen a simple example. So let's say I'm gonna give a simple, little more complicated example. Now I will ask you to, okay, yesterday we have seen this one, right? I cannot draw diagrams on this one, so don't worry. Okay, so here I have this login page, right? And user ID just for the visual representation. Let's call it a wireframe. Wireframe. Who uses wireframes? In what document we see the wireframes? System requirement specification document, right? So let's say I'm going to write test scenarios and test cases, and the application is not fully implemented. I have system requirement specification document with this particular wireframe in front of my computer screen, right? Now okay, this is my login module. Okay, now the system requirement specification document specifies the business requirement with the business requirement ID as well as the snapshot of this, like wireframe, right? Now it reads as like this: a login functionality is authorizing the user using user ID password, right? User ID is should take alphanumeric in lowercase from 4 to 16 character long. All right, the password is should be taking alphabets only in lowercase from 4 to 8 character long. Now prepare the test scenarios. Okay, how do you prepare? Okay, so this is the diagram. Okay, and I'll come back to this, and let me write down whatever I said. So this is the example. Okay, we are here, right? Okay, now this is a functional specification number 1, where it comes from SRS document. Okay, before writing this test scenarios, I had to keep this SRS document in front of me, right? That's where I had to write from. I had to understand this because SRS document contains requirement as well as a wireframe screenshot, so it will give me more idea. Now it says login functionality should authorize users using user ID and password. Now user ID should be 4 to 16 alphanumeric lowercase, and password should be 4 to 8 character alphabets only in lowercase. I mean, this is just a specific functionality. Don't compare it with anyone, Google or another. So let's say this is the specification. Now how do you come up with the test scenarios? That's the task, right? Lowercase. Now okay, prepare the test scenarios. Okay, how do you prepare the test scenarios? Tell me now. You have the wireframe here and you prepare the test scenarios. Okay, what is the first scenario will look like? Okay, you have to come up with. Now I have mentioned before, writing the test scenarios, we can erratically write anything. We can cover 4 characters, 30 characters, 13, how many you can cover, right? So there has to be some kind of technique in order to write. So here, how many you can come up with? Just mention. I'll correct those later. Yeah, how many you can come up with here? I can use user ID. Let's say all are valid, right? Okay, I can come up with valid or invalid, but I can come up with 4 characters alphanumeric, 4 characters alphanumeric, password and user ID. Now what's going to be the result? Blah blah blah. So tell me some random scenarios here. Do not apply any technique. I'll come up with the technique later. Anyone? Anyone? So randomly I can take 4 alpha, 4 alpha. Okay. What is the result? Success.
Successful.
Yes. I can come up with, I am saying, I am asking you how many possibilities are there. There are infinitely many, or not infinitely, there are many, but how we can channelize, how we can optimize this. Okay, that I'm gonna cover in the later. So I'm asking you first of all, how many you can come up with? 5 alpha numeric, right? 3 alpha. I mean, first is user and second is password. What is this? Successful login or
Failure.
failure? Fail, because
Failure.
I'm going 3, little bit less than 4 in the. Okay, then I can go with 6 alpha, 8 alpha,
Pass. Success.
pass, whatever. Okay, I can go on and on like this. 16. I mean 6, right? Next is 7. 7 alpha. Then is I can say 1 alpha, fail. Then I can take 8, I can take 9, 10, like this user IDs. I can go on 16. So my question is, how many you want to cover like this? There will be 4 to 16, 12 multiplied by 4 to 8, 4, 12 into 8. How many? Nearly 100. So just to cover this login functionality, do I need to write 100 test scenarios, which will result in 100 test cases? Yes or no?
No.
No, obviously, because if you're going to just test login with 100 test cases, there are many other functionalities. So basically it will be thousands of test cases, which are basically not needed, because the more number of test cases, the more time the testers had to spend in execution. Manual labor, man hours are wasted. Even in automation also time wasted. Basically, the more the number of test cases, unnecessary test cases, the more the time you're going to spend, which is not good for a agile environment based project especially. So it has to be optimized in some way, but that doesn't mean you have to leave some test case untested. No, you have to cover everything, but you have to do it in a minimalistic way, optimized way. Okay, so obviously this approach is wrong. Now comes into the picture, like I told you yesterday, black box testing techniques we have to apply during the time of test case writing or test scenario writing. Okay, I have explained some black box testing techniques yesterday. Can anybody recall before I scroll?
Boundary value analysis.
Yes.
Equivalence class partitioning. Cause effect analysis.
Yes.
Cause effect graphic. Error guessing.
Correct. So these are the ones. Boundary value analysis. Did you write down these, or are you looking at the notepad that I shared and reading, or did you tell from your memory?
Some memory, some looking at it, both.
Okay. Okay, no worries. So because it's the first time, you can look at it. I am not opposed to it. So boundary value analysis, equivalence class partitioning, cause and effect, error guessing. So primarily these are the techniques. So let's elaborate on these. because it's the right time to apply them. So only time to apply these techniques are during test design phase. Okay. First is boundary value analysis, in short known as BVA. I mean, it's not a term I made up. It's actually used in testing community. So BVA means boundary value analysis. Okay. Now, like the name suggests, you can easily guess what it is. Boundary value analysis. So I have some boundary values here. 4 and 16 are the boundary values, right? Minimum and maximum for user ID. 4 and 8 are the minimum and maximum for the password. So those are my boundary values, correct? For user ID, boundary values are 4 and 16. For password, boundary values are 4 and 18. Now I have to analyze them properly and come up with the scenarios in such a way that every possible scenario is covered under those scenarios and no scenario is going to go untested, correct? Okay, now this is the approach you need to adopt. Now we are going to apply this on which field? Okay, one at a time. Boundary value analysis on user ID, let's say. Okay, so we are going to keep password fixed, like we can take 5 alphabets lowercase, which is a successful password, valid password, fix it. Now you vary on which field? User ID field, because you are going to only apply in one at a time. I mean, you can mix and match, but that is later. Okay, we will see. Then come up with a, yeah, I mean, you have to apply your due diligence while coming, because you're not just dealing with one field here. You're dealing with 2 fields. In some cases, you might be dealing with more than 2. So you have to apply your due diligence while writing this test case in optimized manner. Okay, so minimum is 4 characters, right? Now what this going to result in? Okay, I repeat, I am fixing the password as valid, 5 alphabets lowercase valid password. Okay, now just tell me what is the result. Minimum 4 characters. First time covering minimum, right? Now what is the result? Success or failure?
Pass.
Pass.
Success.
Okay, that means, yeah, so instead of saying success, I am going to mention what is the expected result, because that's what we're going to mention in the test case, right? Step, description, expected result. So I'm going to see next page, whatever the next page is, like profile page or accounts page or whatever, based on the application. Now we are not concerned about that. So that will result me in next page. So this is the description. Step number 1, the minimum 4 characters, user ID, valid password, comma, I'm not mentioning that. Expected is next page, that means success, next page. Failure means I will mention. Failure you cannot mention, I am being specific. Failure means, are you going to get error? Exactly what you're looking at the front end screen, that's what I mentioned. I am seeing after entering 4 minimum characters, valid alphanumeric. And so remember, this is always on size. Boundary value analysis on size only. User ID, size. There are 2 things, right? Remember here. User ID size is mentioned and its type is mentioned. So boundary value analysis is going to concentrate on only size. So I am fixing all other things. It is alphanumeric in lowercase. This whole thing is a type. Okay. So I am not changing this, because if I change this again, there will be more permutations, combinations. That I'll come to later. That I'll apply my due diligence later. So everything else is fixed, and I am varying on user ID size, that because it's a boundary value, it has to be size only. Okay, so minimum 4 characters, next page, success, right? Now this is a technique I am adopting. Okay, actually it's okay, I'm gonna put an arrow. Minimum is 4 characters, next page. Now I have to apply minimum -1. Okay, instead of this, I'll actually put a bracket because it's gonna confuse again. Arrow and minus. So minimum means 4 characters. That is gonna result in next page. That's fine. Okay. Okay, let's take some space. Okay. Next technique is I have to cover minimum -1, which is how many characters? 3 chars. Okay, what should be the expected result? What is the expected result?
Fail.
Fail.
Error. So basically it's not going to go to the same next page. I am on the same page with error message. I mean error message is specific again. Your user ID and either your user ID and or password is invalid. Whatever is mentioned in the specification. That's error message. Now according to me, it's just not going to the next page. It's a failure step. It's a erroneous scenario. Okay, so that's we are covering. So it's basically concentrating upon the coverage. Now minimum is covered, right? Minimum -1 is covered. Minimum -1 negative scenario. Minimum is positive scenario. Now minimum +1. How many characters?
5.
5. Yeah. Okay. What is the expected result?
Next page.
Next page. Okay. Our focus on minimum is over. Okay. Now you can ask, can we cover minimum +2? No, because the minimum +1 takes care of everything. Minimum +1, 2, 3. So that's why we don't have to cover all those +2, +3. That's what this boundary values analysis is all about. This will cover every other possibility so that I don't have to cover any other possibility. So this will be optimized. Now we are going to concentrate on max. Max is 16 chars. Okay, when I say chars, it's alphanumeric lowercase. Okay, instead of mentioning all, I'm mentioning chars. Okay, what is the result? What do you think is the result?
Next page.
Next page. Okay, next max -1, which is 15. What should be the result?
Next page.
Next page, because it lies within the scope of this user ID. No max +1. Match 17. 17. And what should be the
Error.
Fail.
same page with error, right? Okay. Now I have covered all possible scenarios within these 6 scenarios. That I can say for sure, because if I cover max +2, which is 18 characters, it's going to result in same page with error. Max +3, same thing. I don't have to cover 17, 18 characters, 19, 20. I cannot go. So just by covering +1, I have covered all other, because logically that's what it is. I mean, even in the Java or whatever logic the developer has written during coding, it's going to cover everything. It's not going to go beyond that logic. So I know that for sure. So hence we are applying this technique here. Okay. Now, have we covered everything? No. We have just concentrated on the size of the user ID. What about the type? I mean, we have to cover non-alphanumeric lowercase. We can enter capital, right? Now, that analysis will be known as anyone?
Equivalence
Equivalence
class partitioning.
Correct. So that also we have to cover. Now one is boundary value analysis, we have done. Now second is equivalence class partitioning, also known as ECP. So this will be applied on user ID type. Okay, so if you are applying on password type, I mean, so basically Boundary value analysis has to be applied on size. Equivalence class partitioning has to be applied on type. And these are the only two things that are applicable for any object's value. You mentioned size and type, right? That's what is the input all about. You select something, you enter something, either it is size or type. So it's not going to go beyond these two factors. Okay. Okay, now let's analyze this equivalence class partitioning on this user ID. Okay, so here you mentioned two things. I mean, initially you have to put this on paper. I mean, initially, but when you actually, if a senior test engineer writes it, he doesn't have to put like this on paper. He already has this in mind. So just you check with mind and write the test scenarios directly. So this is just for understanding purposes I'm putting on paper. Valid, invalid. Let's say you have two columns in the Excel spreadsheet or nice table with two columns. Okay, valid, invalid. Now, what is the type actually? What is the valid type? Alpha numeric lowercase, right? Now, I'm going to mention A to Z. Okay, just like a regular expression. If you don't know regular expression is an expression which is like an optimized expression which is going to cover all other expressions in loose terminology. Okay, so valid. What are the valid? What are the invalid? I'm going to cover all those. A to Z is valid. Why? Because alphanumeric lowercase. Yes, A to Z is alphanumeric lowercase. So that means if I mention any of the values ranging from A to Z, I don't have to mention all of them. That's right. So A to Z, all these gonna be valid, provided they are coupled with these valid scenarios: min plus 1, max minus 1 only. So then they are valid. Now, how do you couple these with these? That's you have to actually apply that while writing the test scenarios and test cases. Okay. What else? Valid scenarios 0 to 9. Is it a valid scenario or is it invalid?
Invalid.
Why would you think it is invalid?
Because there is no value for 0. It's the value you gave 4 to 16.
But it says alphanumeric. Numeric
Yeah.
numbers are
So, is it valid or invalid?
valid.
Valid. Yeah, you're right. The second answer is right. First answer is wrong. Why? Because it's simple. It is mentioned alphanumeric, right? Numeric is allowed. So, and don't worry about the 4 to 16. That is already covered in the size here, BBA. Now we are only talking about the type. Is it number or not? If I enter a number, it is always valid, provided it is lying the border.
But when you're gonna combine it, what's gonna
That
happen?
is later. That
Okay,
will be later.
but eventually it's not gonna work.
Eventually it might work or it might not work. Don't worry about it. This is just analysis.
Okay.
We are not actually putting the test cases. Remember, just analysis. I am
Okay.
fixing everything as positive and varying upon this. That's all you have to do.
No,
Because
I was thinking about. Okay, that's fine. That's all right.
got it. Okay, so we have to fix everything else. We have to work on. We can work only one at a time. So everything we have to else we have to fix it. Otherwise, you can not analyze. It will be cumbersome. Okay, 0 to 9, provided everything is positive, I am saying. So 0 to 9 is a valid value. Okay. Now what is the result? Valid means next page. Okay, now can you specify some invalid values?
Capital letters A to Z.
Capital A to Z. Any value from capital A to capital Z is an invalid. So just by specifying this, I have covered everything. I don't have to mention capital P, capital R, right? Okay, that is invalid. And what else? So instead of next line, I'll mention 0 to 9. Okay, this line is eliminated. Okay, that is a expected result. So we have another column here, result and next page. Yeah. Okay. What else? What are the other invalid values? So obviously these gonna be error. Same page with error message. Okay. Capital letters are not allowed, and what else are not allowed?
Any special character?
Correct. Special cast, like any special cast that you see on the keyboard on top of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these come under, right? All these special characters. Okay. And many more. I mean, these are just not. Okay, I'm just mentioning just for the example. Okay. And what else? Anything else? I mean, I cannot put space, so I have to mention space. Space is also a special character, right? So that is also not covered. So space is normally referred to as blank space. So these are the invalid scenarios as far as the equivalence class partitioning is concerned, and they're going to result in the same page with error. Okay. Now we have applied boundary value analysis and equivalence class partitioning on what object so far? Read the functional specification again and tell me.
User ID.
User ID, correct. Now again we have to repeat this boundary value analysis on password, right? I mean, we have only two objects in our specification document, user ID and password. Submit button you cannot, it's an action. These are the input values. Whatever you are going to input, you have to apply these techniques. You cannot apply on the action objects. This is the action object. Upon clicking, what happens next? That's a different story. I mean, you can apply because some specification says before entering user ID password, the submit button has to be disabled, as if it's a disabled grayed out. Only after entering user ID password, valid or invalid, that's a different story. Then submit button is going to get enabled. That's another scenario. That's another specification. Leave that. So since we are only talking about boundary value analysis, we have to concentrate on the input values, not the action. Okay. Now I will give you a chance to come up with BVA on password and ECP on password. Okay. Quickly tell me. I won't elaborate on this. Just fast. Everyone has to speak. This is the live example. I mean, this is like a live homework. Instead of giving it a homework and waiting next day reviewing, I am giving a live example and asking you to use your brain. Come up with a solution.
What's the question?
BVA and password. So we have objects, right? User ID and password. So already we have got user ID and we are going to cover password. So that's all. Only.
So we're going to start with the minimum value for the password.
Yes.
So minimum would be
minimum 4 characters. Next page.
not yet. 4 characters.
Minimum is okay. I'll just write minimum 4. Okay. Next page. And then
minimum minus 1.
How much?
Same page with
Write error. Let's see. Okay. I'll write in short now.
minimum
Then,
+1.
Right.
Next page.
Next page. Then
Maximum 8.
next 8.
Nice. Next. Maximum -8.
You mean -1?
Sorry, -1. 8. Next page. Maximum +1. Error.
That's it. Okay. Now quickly on. Okay. Someone else, not you. ECP. Okay, who spoke just now? What is your name?
Nazir Rahman, Mir.
Okay,
Or
Nazir
Nizam.
Rahman. Okay, don't answer this one. Next person is going to answer this one. Okay, anyone other than Nazir Rahman.
So it should be valid,
Okay, what are the valid scenarios? Quickly tell me. Okay, here
lowercase
this.
alphabet,
Okay, how
lowercase.
you're gonna represent lowercase A to Z, and in terms of regular expression, let's say. And what else?
That's it for valid.
Okay, and what are the invalid?
To be
Because we have to cover both invalid valid in the test case writing, because positive scenarios as well as negative scenarios have to be there. So that's why we have to
right.
mention it both. Yeah.
So it should be uppercase.
A
Invalid
to
should
Z.
be uppercase A to Z. No special. Special characters and blank space.
And anything else? Okay, read again the last sentence, this sentence. And okay.
And any numbers?
Correct. Number is that's it. So these are erroneous. Okay, so now we have done applied DVA and ECP on 2 of our fields, right? Now we have to come up with the actual test scenarios, combining these two in an optimized manner, right? Okay, how do you come up with the test cases or test scenarios? First, we have to come up with the test scenarios. Then we are going to go to the test cases. Okay, now let's say test scenario number 1. Okay, tell me, you have to write in English. You have your analysis here. Analysis is just for your sake only, your understanding sake. It's not gonna be documented anywhere. Test scenario is okay. Anyone?
So log in with a valid user ID and valid password and log in successfully.
So always standard terminology for test scenario is gonna look like this. Remember, verify. So that's the first word, because the main purpose of the test case is to verify or validate something. So you have to start with verify. It's not necessary, but it's good too. Okay, verify. Yeah, verify that
Verify that
User ID.
login is
okay, I am
with
gonna mention this again. The requirement is very important. Okay, now it's my task is to prepare the test scenarios. Okay, since I instead of scrolling up and down, I will copy this again. This is what I have to cover. I have analyzed everything. Now I have to cover. Okay, so this is the rec in short, or requirement. Okay, now how many possible scenarios I have to come up with? I have to list them out here, write them, actually document them, because they are going to be reviewed again. So I have to obviously write them.
2.
And you have to say in sentence, I'll write one and you are going to
Verify that user ID and password gets properly executed.
verify if. Okay, first let me start with positive scenario. Verify that if user ID is 4 alpha numeric chars and password is of 4 alpha for bits, and I'm just checking the grammar also. Verify if user ID as 4 alphabet characters and password as 4 alphabets entered and submit button is clicked. You can write whatever you want. Then the next page is whatever page, accounts page should be displayed. Okay, successfully all those words I can eliminate are necessary. So this is my test scenario. Okay, now is it a valid test scenario or not? I have to check against my own analysis, right? So now 4 alphanumeric lowercase, right? So did I mention this? 4 alphanumeric and password is right here. 4 alphabets, yes, entered and sub. Okay, now any test data I can put it in the test scenario also. That's up to you. So test data used is specifically. So tell me the user ID. User 007 and password is, let's say, pass. Okay, is it actually matching? I said 4 alphanumeric, right? Okay, it actually exceeded. Let's say use 1. Okay, is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, no, that covers. I mean, this is still preliminary. I mean, just for the login, we are covering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and permutated with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I mean, special character, a blank space is a special character, so let's cover it. 1, 2, 3. So still we are getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 multiplied by 3. Let's say how much? How many? 18, right? 18 test scenarios for just login is not a good idea. So yes, this is a like I said, it's just preliminary, so we can go about it. But in reality, it's not a good idea. So again, you have to apply your due diligence and only choose those you think are appropriate and leave the others. Okay, so that's totally up to you. Okay, just for the sake of practicing, we are covering this, so just remember. Okay, so this is test scenario number 1. Okay, now test scenario number 2. You come up with any random test scenario number 2. So since I've already covered a positive scenario, now I ask you to come up with a negative test case or negative test scenario. Anyone that's going to result in a negative result. Okay, anyone?
Verify if user ID has 3 alphanumeric lowercase characters and password as 4 alphabets entered and submitted. Then the next page account should be displayed.
4 alphanumeric lowercase and you said 3 alphabets.
I said 3 alphanumeric and 4 alphabets. Or either way.
Okay. You say first user ID is 4 alphanumeric, or you said alphabets. Okay.
I said
Either
4
way,
alpha.
both work.
Boy, either way, it's fine. It's not gonna work. It's negative
That's
anyway.
exactly correct. Yeah, either going it should not be working. So 3 alphabets entered and submitted. So then you're saying the result should be in the
Error.
page.
Same page.
An error message should be displayed. Error message is like, I can mention the user ID or password entered are valid or something like that based on the spec document again should be displayed. Okay, now what particular test data you want to use here to mention? You can mention or you cannot, but let's mention it. Okay, what do you have in mind?
User ID pass or
user ID
pass.
is no, don't use the. I mean, let's use legibly. User ID cannot be passed. So user ID is user something, right? Okay, since you mentioned alphabets only, I can mention user, right? 4 alphabets, lowercase. Okay, now only your concentration is on password in order to make it invalid, right? So what do you have? What do you have in mind? Any password that is wrong.
3 alphabets, yeah.
LOL.
Okay, so since it's not covering the boundary value analysis, it's failing the BVA. It's a fail. Okay, why? Because 3 character password is erroneous. Okay, so that we have covered some things. Okay, so like I said, always apply your due diligence in order to optimize this, because this itself is still a greater number. 6 into 8. Low, basically you have to cover minimum with A to Z, 0 to 9, capital A to Z special characters. It's four scenarios already, and then minimum -1 user ID with coupled with these again 4 more scenarios. So likewise, it's going to be whatever 6 multiplied by 4 or whatever. So that's not a good idea. So as a senior test engineer, he would always apply his due diligence to come up with 2 or 3 scenarios would be more sufficient. And we are talking about here system test design, right? Not end to end, not system integration. System test design only applies on particular aspect. So end to end scenario will look like this, right? Okay, so I'll just give you a brief example of end to end scenario or system integration test design. In other words, SIT. Okay, so this will also be known as end to end test case or test scenario, since we are talking about scenario. So this is going to be a story from not just a login. So basically it would look like this. Okay, so this is basically a creative job. So you have to come up with a story. So like this test scenario 1, verify that if a valid, okay, so here the concentration is not just on login, but it has to cover various aspects of the function, the application that will start from login, end somewhere. So the flow is different, it will take different route altogether, but it will go all to the very end. That's why it is called end-to-end test scenario. Verify that if a valid okay, valid user ID password also I'm not going. Verify that if login is successfully done and user is able to access accounts page the transaction, okay, let's call it transaction, either it's a sending money or whatever transaction transaction should be, it's always careful about choosing the words here, should be successful for peer-to-peer sending, whatever, and user is able to log out successfully. Okay, don't worry about the grammar because it's a BS job or technical writer's job. So our main concentration is we are covering end to end. So if you see here, If you cover login 16 scenarios, it's not a good idea, obviously. So you have to take successful login and user is able to access the account page, and then he's going to perform a transaction of sending money from peer-to-peer type, and then he's able to log out successfully. Finally, he gets back to the home page. That is the end-to-end scenario. Now, this, if you put a focus on login, it's gonna take a lot of time. So you take successful login credentials step by step in the test case. Login successful, then user is able to access account page. Then what he sees in the accounts page, you can also subdivide into, you can see welcome user, banner is displayed, and all his transactions are displayed, and he can choose transaction. So that all will be elaborated step by step in the test case. But if you look at the difference between system test design and system integration test design, this is it. So what is it? What is the difference again? Can you explain? System test design is primarily focused on a single aspect of the application, single module, whereas system test design, system integration test design is primarily focused on the complete application on the whole, overall. So we have to come up with both actually. Okay, so this is how you actually write test scenarios, right? After the test scenarios, we have to come up with the test case. Now, sample test case we have already seen, but every test case document is a template you have to follow. So basically, you can take the template that is used in the test team and write those test steps based on the test scenarios. So this is how it's going to look like. So when a tester does write test cases, during what stage? Test design stage. After what stage in the test design stage, especially after senior test engineer prepares a test scenario document, right? While preparing this test case document, test engineer concentrates on these components. So basic components of any test case document are like any other document or per se. What are those? It should contain test case ID. What is a test case? Why do we need test case ID? Always for reference purpose. Later we can mapping purposes. You have to map it to the business requirement ID for traceability purposes, different purposes, various purposes. Okay. What is a test case ID? How it look like? So here I will go in detail because this is directly related to the tester. So it's a unique name or number or combination of both for future reference. Okay, example is, how does it look like? Normally you start with TC underscore module name, like login or whatever, underscore number 01. So this is general convention nomenclature, but anything can be followed here. Okay, second one is test case name. What is a test case name? Normally it's test scenario, right? That's a test case name. Test case is an elaboration of test scenario, right? So test scenario is nothing but a test case title. So you mention the whole test scenario. A valid verify that if blah 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 is performed, this blah 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 is going to happen. That's a test scenario. So that we have already seen. So here you write test scenario, whole test scenario in one sentence or two sentences. Okay. Now third is, what are you focusing on this? What are the features to be tested here in this particular scenario? You can mention the module name. Module login is tested, or some. If it is multiple modules, you can mention the two. Normally that occurs in the end-to-end testing. Now, some test cases are coupled and put it in a suite that is called test suite, because if I am writing 5 test cases pertaining to login and 5 test cases pertaining to account page, I'm going to call it test suite account page test case test suite login. So I can couple this, because if management asks me to just run test suite pertaining to login, I can just go and run it and show the results. So in order for the reference purposes, I'm going to maintain the test suite also. So test suite has test suite ID. So it will be like TS normally for TS, and module name 01. So basically TS module name 01 has multiple test cases. TC module 01, TC module 02, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say. So all these will be put together and it's called test suite, just for the reference purposes. Okay, I have to mention the priority of the test case because everything is prioritized in any project, right? So if management asks me to run only the high priority test cases, I can choose those, right? So I can leave low priority ones or medium priority ones behind, and I can only concentrate on high priority because time is less. We have to cover many. So hence priority has to be assigned for each test case. Okay, normally this priority is mentioned as P0, P1, not necessarily, it's just one convention, but there will be some high priority. Some people call it high, medium, low. Some people call it P0, priority 1, priority 2, priority. So again, this changes. 0 is a high priority. In some projects, it's a 2 is a high priority number. So it totally depends. Okay. Sometimes P0 means it's a different kinds of priority. Different. I'm focusing on functional test cases only. Okay. So then that will be called P0. So if management asks me to run only functional test cases, then I'll go for the P0 priority. So P1 priority I can put for non-functional, non-normally performance related. And P3 I can go for, P2 I can go for usability. What are those? Cosmetic, like look and feel, the first type of testing, right? Remember, usability, functional and non-functional. So cosmetic, basically it's a look and feel, how everything is displayed, banner is displayed or not. So all those things. TCs. Okay, so in short, okay, so I have to mention what environment I'm going to run this. Okay, what are the environments? It's like I'm going to run this in TST1 environment or whatever. And 7. These are not. These are all. It's not necessary that you have to mention all of these, but some of these. But it's good to know these had to be mentioned, some or all of these. What is the test effort? What is the effort? Oh, so this test case takes how much time? So manually, of course. So I can say 15 minutes to execute, not to write, remember. So test effort to execute this much time it will take, so that I can estimate, come up with the estimate, and come up with ETA, like we have to give ETA, estimated time of arrival, so that the test lead can verify it with the test schedule and check if we can meet the deadline or not, or we have to put some extra hours or weekends we have to work. All those he will intimate to all the testers. So that is for the management purposes. Okay, next test effort is 15 minutes, and you can also mention like schedule, when we are going to what date and time to execute, and any preliminary conditions, prerequisites that we call. So what are the previous setup we have to do? All those things we can mention, like what are the prerequisites for any test case to be run? First of all, environment has to be up and running, right? So, and some web server, for some particular test cases, some web services have to be up and running, so that we can mention under this section, prerequisites. So those are all details. I mean, you have to fill these gaps. So I'm just mentioning what is what. Okay, so then you have to come up with what is it called, mapping. So this is primarily used for the test traceability matrix. So which requirements are you covering? Correct. So that is data matrix. So like I said, a test case can cover multiple requirements. It's not necessarily that only one requirement is covered in one test case. So, and vice versa. So data matrix normally contains map to which requirement ID. You have to mention the requirement ID. So like ALM ID or whatever. So normally rec ID, rec underscore login underscore 0. So example. Okay, what else do you think has to be part of test case document? Components. Anything else you have in mind, or anything else not covered? Finally, you can also put BVA and ECP if you want to, like mention boundary value analysis you have done, because it's, if you want it to be available for the future new joinees, new test case testers, then you can mention after discussing with the test case. So BVA and ECP, it's a good idea to mention this. And finally, you have to mention what for a test case, what is the final component? Yes.
False condition.
Oh, sorry, what is it?
False condition.
False condition, all will come under the BVA and ECP only, right? Don't worry about those. This is pertaining to test case only, right? Conditions, everything under that. And don't worry about the criteria, entry criteria, exit criteria, that will come under test plan document. So specific to test case, what is the final statement? Finally, status, test result, correct? Pass or fail, you have to mention. And finally, so all these are the components, not the steps. Test case primarily contains steps, but these components will be included in the template. You are going to get pick up a template, Excel template or whatever, or a document, Word document. So all this you have to fill. Apart from all these, you have to fill actual. These will be on the header on the top. Normally, yeah, everything on the top, so that whenever the test lead opens this, okay, they can easily learn these are steps and particular execution, what is the pass or fail. So he's going to look at the some steps quickly. Okay, then it will contain actual test case. I mean, in the spreadsheet, but I'm just writing it here. Step number, test description, expected result, right? Actual result, and test data, if any, right? So these are the columns, and you are going to mention all this based on the test case. For login test case, you have to mention accordingly steps, and for any end-to-end test case, you have to mention these accordingly. So normally end-to-end test case is very lengthier than the system test case. Okay, so you know, right, this process steps 1, 2, 3, description, expected result, actual result. So I'll put one document in the this Google Drive and share it with you, and tomorrow we can have a quick look. Okay, so that we'll do tomorrow. And okay, I will give you an example to work on for whenever the next class is. So this is for your homework. Okay, so take this as a homework example. So then you work on it. Are you gonna do it, or you want me to show?
Show it.
I mean, you have to show me, or you can explain me, or somebody can share their screen and show me quickly in their Excel spreadsheet. Either way, it's fine. I mean, it's all totally up to you. Simple example. I mean, apart from this, I will also diagrammatically put it on the other page. So, okay, this is the example. Let's say example. This functional specification says like this: spec in short. So this is the use case. You can also call it as use case. Sometimes use case functional specification normally comes from SRS document. You know this SRS. Okay. Now it says in an insurance page, users select policy types. Okay. So it will look like this. The diagram. Okay, let this be. I don't know. I can put it in dark, but my dark word is not working. Okay, so let's have. So this is an insurance page. And I have two objects here. One is okay. Okay. One is drop down. Okay, just to represent drop down, I am putting like this. So you can drop it down basically. And this is a text box. You can enter something. Okay, so this is an insurance home page. Let's call it. Let's say insurance policy calculator. Quickly to get a quote or something. Okay, don't worry about the intricacies of this. I am just mentioning it just to write a test case. I'm giving an example. So this first field is called policy type. Okay, so this second field is called age. Yeah, so simple example. Okay, so this is how it's going to look like. Policy type drop down. Okay, policy type contains your policy for adults, policy for so and so people, policy A, policy B, policy. Okay, so you can drop down. So there are 5-6 values, let's say, and age you're going to enter like 35 or whatever. All right. So now this is what the functional specification says in the SRS document. In an insurance page, let's say user select policy types. Okay, if user selects policy A, type of policy, okay, simple, then age object is focused. Okay, what does it mean? Focus, it's not enabled. Okay, it's not about enable or disable. Focus, both are enabled. Now initially the focus is in the policy type. That means the cursor is blinking, or focus, it's primarily selected by default, right? You can see normally dot highlighted thing or whatever, totally dependent on browser and this thing, the coding, how it is done, but it is focused. You can all easily find it out. Focus. Let's just imagine. Okay. Now, as soon as you select policy A, automatically the control shifts to age. That means its cursor is blinking. It's waiting for you to enter the age. So that means it is focus. So the functional requirement says if a user selects policy A, then age objects should be focused. Should be. Okay. It is focused. That's the requirement. I mean, should be focused is my test case. Then actually focused or not is, while at the time of execution, I can say is focused or not focused. That is how we choose the words. Okay. Now, age object takes greater than 16 but less than 80. That means that only is applicable for people of age greater than 16 years strictly and less than 80 years strictly. Okay, that means not equal to. See that if I put equal to, then only it is equal to. Okay, now task is, your task is prepare test scenarios for this. Okay, once you prepare test scenarios and write test cases for a few scenarios, one or two. Okay, so that's up to you. You can choose whichever one. Prepare all test scenarios. Okay, do not leave any test, because test scenarios is easy. Just mention the test scenarios, all test scenarios, and write test cases for a few. Okay, this is your homework. Can you do it? Any doubts you can ask me now regarding approach, but not the solution. Any doubts? Or you want me to write one test case as an example, then you can write more test cases. You have to perform BV and AV, ECP on your own. Okay. Yes or no?
No.
No. Or you means you don't want to do the task, or?
I'll try.
Okay, good. Just try. Okay, even if you don't come up with the right one. Okay, I'll write a test scenario, for example. Okay, so how do you start a test scenario? Verify. Yeah. If positive, simple test scenario. I am choosing this easy one. If policy A is selected from policy drop down, yeah, age, yeah, object should be focused. It's directly, I'm just taking the words directly from the spec only. It's a positive. Always you can list as it is a positive test scenario. So that's positive. Now you can come up with negative, right? Based on the BVA and ECP. What is the BVA on this? BVA on which you can apply age, right? You can come up with more. Okay, so this, oh sorry, I didn't cover more because age is also right. And verify that if focused when age is entered as 18 years. Okay, let's say, okay, submit button is enabled. Okay, otherwise it is disabled. Only if you enter the correct age it will be enabled. Okay, so let's make submit button also. Okay, Okay, so submit button is here. So it will be enabled. I'll just only upon entering a valid age, submit button is enabled. Okay, that means that by default it is disabled. Okay, so this is my test scenario number 1. Now you can come up with few more, but do your BV and ECP, okay, on age, and come up with one positive, one negative. Okay, so that is your task. Okay, but do mention all the test scenarios if you can, because that will give you good practice. So 17 is minimum. Remember, 16 is not the minimum because it is greater than 16, I said, and it should be 17 in integer. You cannot take this one floating digit numbers, floating numbers. You have to take integers. Okay, so 0 to 9 ECP is a valid one. Okay, and invalid ECP for this one is what? A to Z. If you enter alphabets for age, it's not going to work. Special characters not going to work. And numbers you're going to do it in a BVA. If you like, for example, if you take 81, it's not going to work, negative. So all that you have to cover. Okay, so are you going to cover this? Simple example, but give you good and so on. Okay, so far what we have seen, test case design for system testing as well as the system integration testing. Okay, this is kind of system integration testing because it covers more than one. So you can I will show you the actual examples. And
a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain ECP 0 to 9? You said this is going to be valid. What was it?
ECP 0 to 9. 0 to 9 is obviously invalid, right? Age, minimum age.
Exactly. I thought you said valid, or you said invalid. I didn't catch it.
Invalid.
Oh yes. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, simple. Okay, do not get confused. Okay, so here I gave you specific example. This primarily focus on numbers. I try to confuse you by putting greater than, so do not get confused. Read the specs carefully. So that's when the peer review comes into picture. Remember, walkthroughs, peer reviews. So when a tester writes a test scenarios and he sends it for, he first walks them through for all the fellow testers, and he also sends him for peer review. So in the peer review, other person can catch these errors. So do not worry about making mistakes. You make mistakes, but you write it, and then we are going to catch them. So that's when the peer review comes. So don't worry. Ultimately, the deliverable should be a final product, should be quality, because that's when the quality comes into picture, right? Our job is to make sure the quality analysis. Okay, anyways. So what is the next step in the STLC after the test design? Test design is over. Test planning,
Test execution.
Test execution. Okay. So if anybody can ask the quick question, you can ask. I mean, I will give you some time, 10 minutes at the end of this today's session, but you can ask me a quick question related to particular topic. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to test execution. I mean, in detail. So that's just a list I just listed out before. Okay, so do not forget this task. I am just putting an asterisk sign.
Can you also send the diagram that you have when you send that?
Sure. Yeah, I will send. Don't worry. Yeah, diagram I will send, and I will also send you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Say it again.
So it's easier to visualize, when you have the diagram.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Diagram I will send you because I cannot put in a notepad, so that's why I'm making this different.
Okay,
So
no, that's fine.
I'll try to put it in a Word document, but I don't have Word. So If somebody can put these and put it in a Word or PDF, that will be nice. Okay, so for the time being, just focus on understanding this concept. That is important, and asking questions right now. So I will share document at the end of this total session, so that will be useful for your reading. Do not worry about even you don't have to take running notes, because I am already taking the class notes, running notes. These act as running notes. So reading notes I'll give you later. For diagrams, quick diagrams, I'll definitely share this. Don't worry. Okay, so next is test execution. Okay, what is test execution? Anyone? What is test execution?
Test results, screenshots, captions, verdict, pass or fail.
Oh yeah, those all come under test execution. Okay, so after completion of test design, test engineer concentrates on this test execution with keeping what in mind? With keeping test cases in mind, right? He has to actually read and understand the test cases. Test design phase, senior test engineer has to read and understand the specifications, functional specifications, not business. Business is raw. Functional specifications, and read them and understand and come up with the scenarios and test cases, right? Now in test execution phase, it's altogether different game. Test engineer, junior test engineer has to understand, first of all, he has to have all the test cases available. He has to ask, senior test engineer, please send me the test cases, email me, or put them in the share drive or SharePoint, give me the link. So now all the test cases are available, and test lead has assigned tasks. Execute these login module or this test suite, person number A, you execute the test suite number 1, person number B, you execute test suite number 2, blah blah blah. Okay, the allocations are over. The tasks have been delegated. Now test execution. During that, who is involved? Tester, also known as test engineer. Now what his primary responsibility initially? He has to make sure all the test cases are available, test case documents. He got them all. Now open them, read them, understand them. If any doubts, ask the person who wrote them. And you can also go to the BAs and SS, ask them. Or if senior test engineer is busy, you can go to and ask them. Or you can basically go and ask anyone and get them clarified. Now, if you can, open the application side by side and check steps. If at all anything is missed, you can also modify them and hey, send it to test engineer, senior test engineer, ask him to re-review again. Okay, these are missed, I put it in, is everything fine? Yeah, then we can get started with the test execution. So before start of test execution, another formal meeting will be conducted between development team and testing team, right? Now test deliverables after test design is test case documents. Now test case documents, anyway we have walked through and peer reviewed among the testing team. Now development team doesn't know, but it is a good idea to involve development team as well, just to take the feedback, because you never know, you have missed out something or you are not on the same page with the development team. Because if development team has developed something else and you have written test case about something else, it's not a good thing. So basically you two teams have to be on the same page. So before test execution, a formal meeting will be conducted between these two teams, development team and testing team. Now during this meeting, a building team, normally known as infrastructure team, basically they build, right? Whatever the developers has coded, the code will be built and they will be built into, deploy into test environments. That's where the testers have to execute this. And they will come up with these are the build numbers, release numbers they will give. So that is for their own tracking purposes. So there will be a configuration management. I told you, right? Configuration management is what which deliverables is stored where. That is what is the configuration server. So development team's deliverable is coded Java classes, whatever, that is their deliverable. They will deliver it. How do they deliver it? By putting that code, all the their whole project, Eclipse project or IntelliJ IDEA project, into a place called soft base, that is known as soft base. Okay, so before test execution, meeting between dev team, infra team and test team will be conducted, right? Now what they will discuss about what location they have stored, because in order to execute you have to know the build number and what environment it is deployed, because if you don't know where to execute, you can't execute, right? Now that is called change and configuration server. Basically it represents what is stored where. Okay, now development team this deliverable is what? Their code is stored in soft base. What does soft base contain? It's basically SVN link or something, or Git link, or wherever they store. Okay, SVN link where all the coding has been checked in or committed. Okay, this is important for the infra team who can deploy, because if they know where the coding is deployed, they will take that and deploy it to particular environment, which is our environment testing team for us to execute. Now infra team, infra means what? What is infra? Infrastructure team. I mean, if I am saying a word, if you don't know, your task, right? What do they do, infrastructure team? I already mentioned this. That's why I'm asking. Deploy the code in a particular environment, like TST1 or TST2, test 1, test 2. Okay, so now testing team stores these test cases, test deliverables in a place called test base. Okay, where everybody else can access, including development team. So just to check, verify whether everything is covered, uncovered, not covered, which is not, should not be covered, is not covered, and everything. So that meeting primarily discuss on this. So soft base consists of what? It consists of all the software programs, the coding, Java coding or .NET coding, and related documents which are prepared by the development team. And this area, soft base, is only accessible by development team and infra team, because test team doesn't have access to this, because they don't need to look at the code, they just need to look at the application, right? Because if it is accessible with testing team, they might change it, which might cause problems. I mean, something can go wrong always. So it's not accessible by the testing. Now test base consists of all testing related documents, and it is accessed by testing team, and it can also be accessed by development team just to check, or temporary access can be given, read only access, not write access. And infrastructure team always has access to development team soft base, because they are the ones who are going to deploy, and they have access to test one environment also, and they don't need to access the test cases, because they are not directly related to test cases, right? So but test team can always ask if environmental issues occur, they can ask them directly, or by asking them to get a particular environment up and running. Okay, so various configuration management tools are Visual Source Safe, Git, Quality Center for us, and for defect reporting, purposes, we use JIRA. So that is another one. Defect reporting. This consists of all the defects identified during the test execution phase. So not yet. Okay, so JIRA is normally used for this, or quality center, LM, Bugzilla, so many. Test base, I would say normally. What is it? Microsoft SharePoint. Infrastructure team. Anyway, they will use different tools. For example, what is it called? Jenkins for building deployment and development uses SVN or Git normally. I mean, there are many. So these are tools used. So this formal meeting discuss about all these things common. Okay. Now comes the time of execution. So assuming that the testers has understood all the test cases and formal meeting is over, build team has deployed all the code to the test environments, and there are no hardware issues. Now they can start the actual execution. Okay. Now what are the levels of test execution? Let's see. Okay, so initial build will be deployed. This is called level 0. Not necessarily same thing. So terminology can be different based on projects. So level 0, dev team deploys initial build. All right. Now I will just mention here level number, right? And this is a build type or build number, and this is a test type. Okay, so initial build, once it is deployed, we perform a type of test. What is the type of test? Initial, anyone? Smoke test, right? So initially we have to perform smoke test or sanity test. Okay, now smoke test is pass, let's say. Now they will go to level 1. I mean, once its smoke test is passed, the resultant is stable build, right? So stable build comes. So level, I don't mention stable build again. So level 1 on the stable build, what kind of testing is performed now? I mean, smoke test is passed, and level 1 on the stable build, what kind of testing need to be performed? Same, you have to basically run all the test cases that you have written, right? Or the particular modules test cases, whatever you're asked to run. So that is called comprehensive testing or detailed testing. Okay, basically you have to cover all the system testing. Now, what happens after test? All the test cases have been executed in the comprehensive testing. Tell me. Or this is also called real testing, detailed testing. Okay, so what could happen after the comprehensive testing? Or everything is fine, or something goes wrong? What happens? Any guesses?
Test results.
Test results, yes, but what consists of test results? What is in the test results? So in the stable build, Real testing is performed. I have executed all the test cases, 100 test cases, let's say. Now, let's say 60 test cases have passed, 40 test cases have failed, right? I mean, how do you know? One or two steps, one or more steps in those test cases have failed, hence those test cases have failed. Okay, so now what is our job? We have to
Defect identified.
defect reporting, correct? So in level 2, defect reporting is done. I mean, defect reporting is actual not level. I will come to that. Defect reporting, we raise all defects and blah blah blah, that we are going to see again. Defect life cycle is different, don't worry about this, I'll come to that in a minute. Now defect reporting happens. I raise 40 defects, let's say, related to 40 failed test cases, and assign all of them to test lead or directly to a developer concerned, and they are going to take a look at them and fix them and assign these defects back to the tester so that they can do what? Retest. I mean, basically, once you fix, you have to retest those, rerun those test cases, re-execute those 40 test cases only, correct? That is called retesting. Any doubts still here? Clear? Retesting is done on what? Defect reporting, defects build, fix build, we can call it, or hot fix or whatever. So basically, this phase is defect reporting, after defect reporting. So I'm just gonna put in brackets. So retest is performed on the fix build. Okay. Okay. So now again the same cycle repeats. After retesting, let's say in the 40 test cases, 44 failed test cases, only 20 test cases have been passed, 20 have been failed, right? What I'm gonna do as a tester, I'm gonna reassign them to the developer, same developer or different developer. So 20, again they are gonna fix those 20 test cases, again they are gonna send them back to me as a tester, again I have to retest. So basically it's a cycle until all the fix build keeps on coming. So I'm not gonna repeat this. So level 2 is basically repetition of fix builds. Fix build is gonna come until all the defects have been fixed and all the test cases have been passed. Basically 100 test cases have been passed in my test suite. Okay. Now what happens? So this cycle runs, right? Finally I have to run another kind, because finally they have fixed, and I have, even though they are test in the final build, how many I have tested? 20 test cases which have been failed, which have been passed, right? Or 10 test cases finally. Now I am only running those test cases which have been failed in the previous fixed build, correct? Now what I have not done is, I am not taking care of those test cases which have passed earlier, 90 test cases, remember? Now what could have happened? What could have happened? Because of the fixes which are primarily focused on those failed test cases, developer must have broken the existing test cases. Must have, might have, correct? You never know. You never know, because you have not run those test cases, you have not executed. So now my job is to, on the modified build, run what kind of testing? Tell me. Now I have to run the whole test cases, all the test cases. Why? Because due to these fixes, something must have been broken, right? Might have been broken, you never know. But I, as a QA quality analyst, it's my job to make sure that. That's when the testing comes into picture, right? So modified build, what I will run is regression test. Okay. So all test cases all over again, just to make sure nothing is broken, everything is fine. Okay. So finally, these are all levels are subject to change or subject to the customization. So, but these are all primarily followed. Level 4 is finally regression test is passed. If regression test fails with 2 or 2 test cases against same cycle, fix becomes they fix, we rerun, we fix, rerun again, we run regression suite. This is a cycle. So finally, final regression will be done on the final build or final release before going, before it will be deployed in later on stages like UAT stage environment. UAT will do the testing, and then finally it will be deployed in production. So final regression will be performed because we want to make sure no defect is unidentified. So we have to raise all the defects. That's our primary job. Or post-mortem testing, final testing, right? So these are all levels of test execution. And once post-mortem testing is over, we are completely sure all the requirements have been tested and no defects have been left unfixed, untested, and everything is fine. That's why we are certifying, right? Now UAT team will come into picture and they will take a look at this again. If they don't find anything, everything is fine, they will appreciate the testing team. If they find anything, they will come back to us. I mean, why did you not test this? So the what happens afterward is root cause analysis, blah blah blah. So that's a different thing, right? Okay. Now, any doubts so far in the test execution? You execute. How you execute is I'm going to discuss, but levels of execution are these. These are the types, levels of execution, not types. So what types of testing is performed at what level are these in what stage of building? Okay, any doubts so far in the text? Because this is important. Test execution is very important because that is a primary job of a tester. No doubts? Okay, so now we will go into these one by one quickly. Smoke testing. Okay, so level 0, sorry, level 0 smoke testing. Okay, so what is smoke testing? What will happen during this kind of testing? And I will also mention different synonyms of smoke testing, also known as, what is this also known as? Sanity testing and TAT, also known as, because you have to be aware of all this terminology. What is TAT? Tester acceptance testing, not user acceptance testing. Tester acceptance, because you are accepting as a tester. So UAT will be preceded by the TAT. Not just TAT regression, but you can call it. Okay, so what will happen during this smoke testing? I already explained, I guess, yesterday, but you can say the answer or you can wait for me. Madhu Jasti, can you speak? You are unmuted. I think only Najur Rahman is speaking so far, right? Okay, anyone else can speak so that I know that you are there. Person is there actually. Are you there or not? Say hi or hello.
So it's basically overall functionalities of the testing, like a high-level testing.
Okay. Correct. Yeah, not overall. It's the important features quickly tested. Smoke testing, I told you, right? Quickly we have to test within 15 minutes, and important features will be tested. and just to make sure the system is up and running and the environment is up and running and the important functionalities are working fine, including some web services and database. So that will be tested quickly in the smoke testing, right? So that will be performed in the initial build. So, and most likely if dot releases, these are what we call dot releases, initial builds, will go on every day normally, or more than one per day sometimes. So this has to be automated, of course, because sometimes the deployment occurs in the night time and there is no one working on the night time to test, and we have to wait until all the testers come in the morning, 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. and they'll test. So if you want to make sure by the time you come to the office, just make sure deployment is done successfully and the build is successful, tested successfully. That will that will expedite the later on things, like they can move on to different levels, like they can deploy other fixes and everything. So this will normally be automated. The smoke test will be triggered automatically after the successful deployment, and it will be done by the time in the morning comes. You just see the report in the email or whatever, and success, failure. If you smoke test successful, they can move on. If it is failed, then we can ask the development team to fix. This goes on. So this is what happens in the smoke testing. So what features actually you are testing for the understanding sake is, yeah, anybody? These are the below factors. Yes. Understandability, right? Controllable or not, operatable, right? These are the factors that you're primarily testing the smoke testing during the smoke testing. And observable for consistency and simplicity, maintainability, and of course automatable. Okay. So these are the factors that you keep in mind during this level 0 testing. So this testing is also known as another word, octangle testing, and these are different terminologies. You need to just keep in mind. Okay. So now, how many types of testing? How we can test this smoke testing? We already know. One, through manual testing. You can come in the morning and test manually, or you can test using automation testing. So I'll just mention quick difference between these for the smoke. So for manual testing, how do you do? Software build comes, right? Then you execute test case, smoke test case, right? And then you report. Okay, simple as that. If any defect report, if passer, you report. Automation build is slightly different. Software build comes, then auto execute. Before that, so you execute the manual test case, right? So this is already done. It's not every time you have it, just for now. So you basically convert one time only, but you convert manual test case to automated test case. Test case. Then you execute this, run this, or trigger this auto test case, and then auto report. So this is gonna be taken care automatically overnight. So that's the main difference between manual testing and automation testing in terms of smoke testing execution. So what are the report what does it contain? So final verdict is main important. That's where everybody is going to look for, either pass or fail, or third status is blocked. Okay, so same thing for auto report also. Okay, so pass means all steps have been passed in the test case, smoke test case. Fail means any one step is failed in the test case, then entire test case is failed. What is blocked? So this normally doesn't apply to smoke test, but in general for regression test cases, if there is any parent test case, okay, parent test case is failed, and due to that the child test cases are blocked. You cannot even execute them. Forget about pass or fail. You cannot even execute them. For example, login. Login is a parent module. So I want to test my subsequent test suite pertaining to the account page. So that is prerequisite for account page test case is successful login. That is a preliminary. So I can't even proceed to my account page. So basically it's not fail, the parent test case suite execution, it's said to be blocked. So you can mention either of these three verdicts in the test report: pass, fail, or block. Okay, level 1 is what is it? Real testing. So in real testing, what you do in general? So how the actual cycle goes look like, how it looks like. So this is a cycle. You manually do this. Let's say you launch application, because it's during daytime it is done, because you have ample time and you have certain number of test cases. You launch application, launch test case, I mean open test case in the Excel spreadsheet, then you perform each step on the application, each test step on the application. Okay, now verdict, you specify verdict for each test step. So specify step verdict in the test execution document or Excel spreadsheet. If pass, what do you do? Proceed to next step, right? If fail, what you do? Okay, I forgot to mention, there is, you can also mention a defect number column in the test case. I'll show you later. If fail, mention defect, I mean you first go to defect tracking tool like JIRA. Okay, so in JIRA what you do, you mention all the details about the defect, like race defect with description and screenshot and title and everything, and take that number, provide that defect ID in against test step failed, right? So that's how everybody knows what step failed and why it is failed with the details and everything. Okay, so then defect tracking mechanism is applied. Okay, so that it goes to developer, appropriate developer is going to fix it, come back. So basically test up, you can stop right there, that, and you can jump to the next test case. So this cycle goes on and on and on. So this is called DR process. So this will go on and on until all the failures have been fixed. Okay, so now that cycle goes on in the real testing. And in level 2 regression testing, what happens? What is the primary difference between real testing and regression testing? So real testing is comprehensive testing that is performed after the successful smoke testing, right? So basically you run each and every test case. So regression testing is final testing. You just want to make sure after all the defects have been fixed, the existing functionality has not been broken. So just want to make sure that I will run the regression testing. So regression testing is consists of same steps that are in real testing. It's basically repetition. So if anybody asks you this question, which is important interview question, real testing definition, how do you define it? Verification of all functionalities, right? Make sure. What is the regression testing? Yes, what is the regression testing?
Retesting after any modifications or changes been made.
Right.
To check if the changes didn't cause.
Right. Verification of defect functionality, basically. Not the actual functionality, defect functionality. How defects are behaving. The defect fixes are behaving on the surrounding area. Of the functionality. In other words, is performed to make sure the existing functionality is not broken due to the defect fixes. That's it. So this is the primary difference between retesting and regression testing. You have to be able to explain this in the interview. Yes. Okay. Now these are different. Modified build you perform. Final build is just it's like a namesake testing. You just want to finally post-mortem testing just to make sure everything is finalized and closure. So concluded, not the test closure, but just testing, test design, test execution closure. Okay, so that I'm not going to mention.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you repeat regression testing one more time, please?
Sure. Okay.
But my question is, it is like the defects before and after both has to be executed, like fixing, like while
yes.
like there is a defects fixed first, and then we move it to the next level. Like you said, like there was like 60 test cases, so 40 of them got right, 20 got defects. So we're gonna fix these 20 defects now in the next.
Correct.
And what happened if there is a mistake in like last 40? So that's regression testing, or
No. Okay, let me take another example. So a short example. Okay, understand this, everybody. Okay, let's say for the simplicity's sake, I'll take 10 cases. 10 test cases only are there. I mean, initial stages of the application, I have 10 test cases. Now, smoke test is passed. I will run 10 test cases in the level 1, right? All 10 test cases. Now, 5 test cases are passed. 5 test cases are failed, right? Now, for 5 test cases, I will raise 5 defects or more, or I can combine them all and put 1 defect. That's a different story. Now I'll raise 5 defects for simplicity's sake, let's say, and I'll assign them to developer. Developer fixes or thinks he has fixed. Okay, basically he thinks he has fixed. He fixed because without making sure he cannot say for sure he has actually fixed. Now it is our job to make sure those are fixed. So in the next testing, right, level 2 testing, it's a cycle. Level 1 testing cycle, modify the fix build. What I will do is I will take those 5 failed test cases, I'll rerun them. Okay, so basically the fix build comes, deployment team deploys a new build. I'll take the new build number, and I'll access that environment, fix environment for wherever this is deployed. I'll rerun those 5 test cases only. Why would I run the previously passed 5 test cases, right? It's wasting time. So 5 test case I'll rerun, and I have observed that in the 5 test cases, only 3 test cases are passed. 2 more are still failing. The developer who fixed it, he thinks he has fixed it, but he hasn't actually fixed it. Now I'll tell the same story to developer. You haven't actually fixed. These are issues, or you have partly fixed a part of it. You haven't fixed this part. I'll say whatever based on my observations, right? Now he takes them again. He puts them into fixed state. He fixed it according to their team. Again, I will run only 2 test cases. Correct. So now only 1 test case is passing, one more is failing. Again, I will say the same story. Again, I will get the fixed build. Again, I will run the last test case. Now the final test case pass, hopefully. I mean, successfully, not hopefully. Testing cannot use that word. So it is fixed. Now, what I have done is, what I have been doing is, I am only running subsequent failed test cases. What I am ignoring is the previously passed test cases. Now, there is an important concept called, you fix something, you break something, right? You developer fixes something, but he breaks something too, knowingly or unknowingly. But it's not the developer's jobs to make sure. It is our test team jobs to make sure. So now finally in the regression testing, I have to run the whole test suite all over again to make sure, just because of these repeated fixes, he hasn't broken those 5 test cases, past test cases previously. Now I will run the entire suite again, and I will find out that surprisingly the first test case, first time which is passed, is failing now because of the some defect fix. Now I will again raise another defect. Now again development name fixes it, and now it passes. Now again I will rerun the whole suite. Regression suite has to be run at a stretch successfully. That is my responsibility. See, so now the entire regression suite is passed. Now what happens is, manual labor is put in lot, right? So now as a test lead, I would think of an automation. So since we have to run this test suite 10 times, now why shouldn't be automated? Now automation comes into picture. I mean, this is a thought process later. So did you understand now regression testing and retesting?
So, in a nutshell, level 2 will be always followed by level 1.
Level 2 is followed by level 2 actually. Okay, level 2 is
Regression testing.
Yeah, retesting. Yeah, don't worry about the level. It can always vary depending on the projects. These are like conceptually your concept.
Yes.
So real level 2 is actually retesting. I mean, you retest only the fixed defects. Basically, it's a defect testing, right? Defect testing, right? Now real testing is over. Retesting. After retesting, level 3 regression testing. Don't worry about level numbers. Okay, don't get confused with. Okay, regression testing goes on and on until all the defects have been fixed. Okay, that is a cycle. Now we are going to take a look at the defect cycle also. Okay, quickly, because we are over time. But I just want to cover complete STLC. Okay, no more questions, right? Everything clear about regression?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now we are going to move to defect reporting. Okay, so defect reporting tracking document consists of the same thing, same components. What are the components involved in it? Like defect ID, because of the tracking purposes. You know what defect ID? ID means it should be like some ID. I'm not going to elaborate on that. And defect description, it's a template. You just have to fill in these values. And build number, what build you have encountered this defect on, build number that is given by the deployment team, and what is the functionality that you have encountered this defect on, and which test case ID you have encountered, because you are running one test case, you have encountered this defect. You have to, in the defect reporting, you have to mention the test case ID. In the test case, you have to mention the defect ID. It's a cross what is it, mapping. Okay, and is it reproducible or not? Why? Because as a tester you can reproducible, but as a developer he should be able to reproduce on his, otherwise you wouldn't fix it. So yes or no? If not reproducible, you want him to come to your sit and reproduce on your machine, that you can mention everything, details. Status will be, so this is actually related to cycle. All right. Okay, before status, one important thing is severity and priority. I'll just quickly mention these. Okay, severity of the defect. What is the severity? Is it a high severity, medium severity, or low severity? Okay, I'll explain about these. And priority is also high, or numbers you can mention 0, 1, 2, 3. It's totally up to 1 and 2. Okay, I will give you example. Severity and priority are two different things and two different questions in interview also. So severity of a defect is directly related to how important that particular functionality is for the application, right? And priority is how important you have to take in terms of testing, in terms of business, how priority it is. Like, do you have to put it in a first priority, second high priority? You have to test it quickly or delay it, that thing. Severity is definitely it is impacting the application in such a way that everything else is stopped, like it's a showstopper or something. I'll quickly give an example of severity high. Severity high is entire application is down. I mean, environment is down. You can't even test. That's a severity high. Correct? Now, priority high. How do we define priority? Priority is related to it's this reputation of the project. Like for example, it's working fine, but the banner on the home page is not there. I mean, it's the banner is important for any business, right? So that's high priority. It's not severe. It's not impacting the functionality. Banner is just not displayed. But however, it is high priority for the business because their reputation is at stake, right? I mean, general public cannot even see the banner. So what it is about? So basically impacting the reputation. So medium severity is like some functionalities are working. I mean, login is working, but I cannot access my account page. So at least you can work on login. So medium priority, medium severity. That is low severity is cosmetic thing. Totally functionalities are working fine, but I see some alignment problem. So login, instead of login being in the middle align, it is coming on the left side, left align. I mean, it's not in the middle. Like for example, so here, yeah, this is the cosmetic. It should be in the middle, right? In this pod, it's not coming. So that's a, its functionality is not being affected, but it's just a cosmetic thing. So I can raise a low severity defect. So low severity defects will be fixed later. So basically, these will be prioritized by the defect fixing team, development team. So you can mention this high, medium, low, high, medium, low, and status will be, it changes according to the defect current status. Initially, when you raise a defect, it will be in a new status, right? Then test lead will open. Normally, you raise a defect and assign it to test lead because test lead knows which developer is working on what. So based on which he will delegate it. So he will open it and then he will assign it to particular defect. Then it will change to assigned state. Then developer picks it up and he starts working on it, right? It will then, after he fixes it, or at least he thinks he fixed it, he puts in the fixed stage. So the defect state or status moves to fixed state. Everybody else in the project can see what is its current status. Now fixed state, now he will assign back it to the tester who has raised it. Then he will put on ready to test. I mean, there will be more here after fix. There can be one more, ready to build stage. So once ready to build stage is there, the deployment team think, okay, this build is it's ready to be built. So they will deploy it. So after deployment, the deployment team moves it to ready to test. That means tester can pick it up and test it, retest it basically. So after retesting, ready to test stage, what happens again? it's either fixed or not fixed. Okay, it's pass or fail. So if it is pass, what happens? He can close it. Now, if it is not pass, what happens? After ready to test, he tested it, retested it. Now it's not pass, so he will reopen. Now after reopen, the cycle goes to again assigned stage. Again, it will be assigned to same developer or different developer. Again, he puts on fixed, or he can also put on cannot replicate or invalid, whatever you can put. Cannot replicate. There will be many sub stages based on. I'll share the document with you, the cycle document. Or it's an invalid defect. If he thinks invalid, it's sometimes test team can raise invalid defects too. So I can put invalid. After invalid, it is directly closed. So the arrow marks I cannot put it here, so cannot show. So once again reopens, it goes to here assign. Then he fixes it and ready to build, builds it, ready to test. Again retested by the tester, and it is successfully passed. Again you can close it. So that is a complete life cycle of the defect in a defect. So status also related to it's a defect life cycle. Or status. Okay, so this I will show you diagrammatically. I will share the document with you. So there are three terms which are commonly referred to as error, defect, and bug. There is a difference. So what is an error? Error is a mistake done in the coding. By mistake the developer has done and mistake in the coding. Instead of while loop, he has used for loop. I'm not talking about the compilation errors. Compilation errors you can't even proceed because you cannot even commit it. So he has done a mistake. By mistake, or instead of logic greater than sign, he has put as less than sign. Instead of greater than sign, he has put greater than or equal to. So those simple mistakes normally referred to as errors. These are errors in the coding. Defect is, okay, let me mention error. So what is error? A mistake in coding. Now what is defect? Defect is, now you might be confused, what is a defect, what is a bug, because both look synonymous but they are not. Both are different, that's why I didn't put slash. Okay, defect is an issue which is found out by a tester. Okay, it may not be actual valid or invalid, remember. That's why when defect is raised, developer can invalidate it. I mean, you can put invalid. So that's basically an invalid defect. So it's basically issue identified by tester. Okay, now what is a bug? So bug life cycle, that's what you call bug or defect life cycle. It's both. Okay, what is a bug? Any guesses now?
Issue identified by users.
No. Issue confirmed by the development team. Now bug is a real defect. Defect can be non-real. It's just identified by the tester. If you find a issue in the application, it's called a defect. But if dev team confirms it, then it becomes a bug. Then the whole life cycle takes place. The fixing, ready to build, ready to retest, reopen, close, and everything. Okay. So now you have understood the life cycle and difference between error, defect, and bug, right? Any questions in this? Okay, I'll ask quick question. What happens if developer thinks he cannot replicate? What would be the later stage of defect? He cannot replicate the defect. What will be the next stage?
Give him
Invalid.
steps, detailed steps
carry out this step?
He basically talks to the tester. He comes to the test team, test engineer's machine and asks him to replicate on his machine. So basically, just because he cannot replicate, it cannot invalidate the defect, right? So that's that. If he can replicate on the tester's machine, he will try to fix it. So basically, he cannot close it without any discussion. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about defect resolution types. I will finish it in 10 minutes. Is it okay? Because we are beyond time, half an hour, I guess. Is it okay? Because we can complete the test, software testing life cycle at least quickly. Okay. All right. So the defect resolution types. Actually, these come under defect reporting. So I put it in manual testing, defect reporting. Yes. All right. So defect resolution types. Quickly, I'll mention, as the name suggests, you can easily. These are self-explanatory, so they don't have to explain. So resolution types are duplicate. Sometimes tester raises duplicate defects, so it will be rejected right away. Okay, and enhance. Sometimes a defect is already present. It's basically enhancement of the defect. So this is also rejected. Basically, he has to go to the old defect and update it instead of raising a new defect. So enhancement is rejected automatically. And hardware limitations. Okay, so this is rejected because sometimes that is related to performance, and because of limitations of the concurrent users, you basically put a lot of stress on the system. So hence you cannot test it. So it will be rejected as part of functional testing. It is not part. So software limitations rejected too. Okay, limitations will be rejected right away. And if developer needs more information, okay, what we will do? Any guesses? He has to discuss. He can neither reject nor accept. He has to discuss and decide later. Not reproducible. I just told you, right? What is the next step? Not reproducible results in acceptance or rejection of defect. Discussion, right? Okay, there is one important thing is important stage in the defect resolution type is no plan to fix it. Okay, the defect is real, but we don't have time right now. We can defer it, postpone it. So basically, it will be postponed. So no plan to fix it right now. So that's self-explanatory. Fixed. So once it is fixed, that means it is accepted and resolved, right? Now deferred, like I told you, it will be valid but postponed. Accepted. Defect is accepted but postponed. That means they will assign a different release number, future release number to that, and they will fix it later. And yeah, so these are the primary defect resolution types. Defect life cycle, I'll share a diagram with you. Basically, it's the same thing, but from which stage to which stage you jump with diagrammatically using arrow marks, I'll share that with you so that you can understand it in a better manner. And examples of defects are these. Okay, like showing the priority and severity. So one example is user interface issue related defects. What are these categorized as? What is the priority and severity for this? User interface related, low severity, right? Interface alignment is not correct, and left right alignment, and the capitalization is not correct, blah blah blah. So for example, spelling mistakes and Sometimes the wording is very complex, so it's very complex meaning user cannot understand it. You have to literally break it down, complex meanings in sentences, labels, whatever. So, and objects alignment. Okay, so again the low severity, but what is the priority for this? I'll mention, because you have to mention both the things. So I fix the low severity, but the priority varies. Spelling mistakes can be categorized as high priority, right? Why? Because it is related to repetition. And complex meanings, you can understand, some people can understand, some people don't, so it's a medium priority. That means we can fix later. And objects alignment is low priority because it's totally cosmetic. You can totally fix it after 4 weeks or something. Okay, second example is error handling defects. So these are error handling related defects are always considered as medium severity. Okay, in the error handling defects, examples are the error message is not getting displayed. It's like login. I entered wrong user password, but no error message is getting displayed. What is considered as? I mean, it's not going to next page, but it's neither displaying error message, not going to next page. So what it can consider as high priority, right? Because user is confused. Is my user ID password is wrong or right? Because it's not going anywhere, it's not displaying anything in the right. Okay, wrong error message. Like if I enter a user ID password wrongly, it says your profile, you haven't even signed up or something. So that is totally confusing. So that is a, however, it is displaying some error message, so it's not high priority. So it can be considered as medium priority. Examples are very important so that you can use your due diligence later. And in the error there is a complex meaning. I mean, you can't understand sometimes the error message. So those will be categorized low priority because error message is displayed. So at least user will think, okay, this is error, even though it doesn't understand right away. So it can be fixed later. And third one is input value related defects. So why we are mentioning these now? Because you have to mention the high priority and severity in the defect tool JIRA while you are raising. So you should be exactly assessing what kind of error it is. So any guesses what its severity should be? Input value related, high severity. Okay, any example? Not taking valid data. This is high priority. Valid data is not taking, like even if I enter a user ID password valid, it is not taking, right? It's just simply doesn't go to the next page. It is on the contrary, it is displaying error. That is totally high severity, high priority because user can be pissed off. Now what is the other? Taking valid data but exceeded size also. Like user ID is from 6 to 30 characters. That's what is the spec. But even if I enter 32 characters, it is just taking. Okay, so since it is taking, it's a medium priority. It's just not blocking. So that we can fix later. So you can prioritize accordingly. So the examples basically are to make you understand how to determine severity priority. So that's all. Okay, so if I am entering something like valid data in the user ID password field, right? But without, let's say, lowercase, I am entering as capital case. Okay, it's accepted. That's why it is taking, means accepted. So that is a defect. However, it is a defect of high severity but low priority. You can understand why I am putting high and low severity. Okay, fourth one is calculations defect. Calculations defect is always high severity because I told you, right, in Amazon, your subtotal is coming as high. The addition is totally done wrongly. You are getting $10 extra you need to pay. So that is high severity because it's a damage for business. You cannot pay high or low in the on that matter. That is going to be a loss for the company. So first, high priority is no output at all. No output is coming. No subtotal is coming for me. So that is totally high priority because showing 0 or nothing. Wrong output. Wrong subtotal. This is actually some subtotal is coming. So it's a medium priority. Okay, what do you think is a good example for low priority but high severity? Output is correct, but let's say dollar symbol is not displayed. I mean, it should be $10. It doesn't display dollars, so I am not sure should I pay in dollars or pounds. So, however, it is understood. In US, it is dollars, so it is low priority. Okay. Okay. What else I can take? These are all functionality related. So let's talk about load conditions related. Load conditions is always high severity because Amazon, if you take for example, it has to sustain high load too. Okay, the whole application not working for multiple users. Let's say, I mean, even if 10 users are trying to access, it's not working. It's down or something. So that is high priority. Okay, what do you think in terms of load is a medium priority? Working for some multiple users, but not for exceeded users. Exceeded or expected users. Exceeded, like I'm expecting 100, it's not working for 100 users. So that will be of type medium priority. Okay, so give me an example for low priority. Okay, you can come up with all this, right? So I can go for configuration related. So device is not working. This is a high priority. I mean, the system for testing is, so always configuration related is medium severity, not high severity though. So device is not working is high priority, IP, and device is working, but operating system is wrong. I mean, I have installed on my VM both Linux and Windows, but Linux is coming. So these are all configuration related, not related to the application. So that's why they are of medium severity. So this is of medium priority. And let's say correct operating system is coming, but alignment not proper. So since alignment we always consider as cosmetic, so it's low priority. And okay, last but not the least, help documents, help related, right? Help resources. Help document is not there. Help messages. Okay, sometimes help messages, the question mark thing comes, right? Help message not displayed. So help resources always come under medium severity. I mean, some people need help related to understanding, especially non-technical end users. So it is very important. But help message not getting displayed is definitely high priority, HP. And wrong help message displayed, that is medium priority, MP. Complex help message, I mean, I can't even understand, but something is there, so it's low priority. All right. So I'll take last example for low severity because I haven't taken the low severity. I can say ID control defects. So that is of low severity. It won't impact the functionality at all, right? Okay, so complex logos, right? Any copyright link is not working. The terms and conditions link not displayed. These are all, I mean, very low priority also because nobody cares about them. There's very under, it's displayed very in the beneath application. So these are some of the examples that will enable you to understand the defect while raising defects, how to assign. Okay, finally I'll close this by mentioning what is the last step of test, this thing, last step, test closure, right? So what is the test closure? Finally, everything is pass and everything is successful. Defects have already all fixed after the completion of all types of all levels of testing. Defects have all been resolved and all exit criteria is met. That means all functionalities have been tested or we have reached the time limit and we have to close this, right? And the coverage analysis is done indefinitely. So coverage analysis includes what? Requirement traceability matrix, and they test team lead, make sure all defects have been all defects have been covered, tested, and all requirements have been tested. All testing test cases have covered all requirements, business specifications, system specification, function specification, and he conducts a test closure document. Okay, a test closure meeting. So even in the test closure meeting, there are few defects that are left untested. Okay, those are called golden defects. Okay, so these will be basically they will be postponed for the next release because we cannot do anything right now. The time is over. We have to move forward with the go live. So that will be covered in yellow box testing. So black box testing is what we cover in the functional testing, right? Yellow box testing will cover those. So finally, those are called the golden defects. So in this, a sign off meeting occurs. So sign off meeting is basically to discuss after the completion of all these, all the deliverables have been delivered successfully. So it will cover sign off meeting. Discuss about deliverables. What are the deliverables? I'll just mention quickly. Yeah, anybody? Test strategy. What are the deliverables so far? Then test plan doc, test case docs, defect reports, everything. Make sure finally. So and RTM, traceability matrix, everything is ready. So once everything is ready, the sign off meeting occurs and successfully they will close the software testing life cycle. So that is all about it. Okay, so today it's already over 40 minutes, I guess. Okay, any doubts in today's meeting? Okay guys, so no doubts. We'll conclude this, and in the next class, I think on Tuesday, right? Tuesday we will start the Java coding. So you can still ask about manual testing doubts in the beginning or end of the session. And I'll share these notes, the Gmail, and the notes that I talked about, the defect life cycle and the diagrammatical representation of all this in the email, and put those documents related to Agile. Someone asked yesterday in the share drive. And today's recording session will be shared with you by Sadul. So send him the your user ID, I think Gmail that you are requesting from, so that he can enable you to access that file.
Can you give an example for RTM?
What is that?
An example for RTM.
RTM. Okay, I'll send these docs. Share docs, RTM and test case doc, RTM doc, and agile reading doc. And what else? RTM doc is nothing but it consists of 2 columns or more columns, especially test case ID mapped to requirement ID and vice versa. So test case, this maps to 1, 2, 3 requirements, and this test requirement covers all these test cases and defects. So it's just a cross mapping between defects, test cases, and requirements IDs. Okay, so don't worry, I'll share that and I'll explain the next class if time permits. So basically, these are concepts of manual testing that you are not going to apply practically, and some practically in the especially in test design, in test execution mostly. But these will be used in automation testing as well, because every person in the automation team uses same tips and tricks, tidbits, techniques, and everything. Okay. Okay, guys. So today, if no questions, I'll end today's session.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. Okay, so catch you in the next session.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.